The Ship of Theseus is a fascinating thought experiment from ancient philosophy that challenges our understanding of identity and change. Imagine a grand ship sailing across the azure waters of the Aegean Sea. This ship is not just any vessel. It is the Ship of Theseus, celebrated for its heroic voyages and storied history. Over time, as the sea's salty spray and harsh winds take their toll, the ship begins to show signs of wear. Planks warp, sails fray, and ropes become brittle. To preserve this beloved vessel, the crew replaces these worn-out parts with new materials, bit by bit. Here's where the thought experiment becomes truly intriguing. As each component of the ship is replaced, you might wonder, is it still the Ship of Theseus? After all, it still has the same shape, it sails the same waters, and it carries the same name. But then, let's consider a deeper aspect of this replacement. If all the original parts were taken and assembled into another ship, which one would be the true Ship of Theseus? The ship made entirely of new parts, or the one built from the original planks? This philosophical puzzle raises important questions about what it means for something to maintain its identity. Is identity tied to the physical components that make up an object, or is it more about the continuity of experience or function? When you replace a part of a whole, does it remain the same entity? For instance, consider a wooden chair. If you replace one leg with a metal one, it still functions as a chair and may look similar. What if you replace 2 legs, then 3? At which point does it become a different chair? To explore further, think about living organisms. Take a tree, for example. Throughout its life, a tree sheds leaves, grows new branches, and absorbs nutrients. Even as parts of the tree change, it is still recognized as the same entity, especially if it remains in the same location and continues to grow over the years. In this scenario, the identity of the tree is less about its physical components and more about its ongoing life and function in the ecosystem. This leads us to consider the elements of memory and experience. In people, identity is often perceived as a combination of memory, personality, and physical characteristics. Over time, we undergo changes, both physically and mentally. Cells in our bodies are constantly being replenished. We grow and evolve. Yet, we still see ourselves as the same person throughout our lives. The memories we hold and the experiences we accumulate contribute to our sense of self, suggesting that identity is a more complex interplay of aspects than just physical composition. Now, let's look at the world of technology. An example is a favorite computer or smartphone. Over time, parts may be upgraded or replaced, and software is continuously updated. Does it remain the same device? On one hand, it carries the same brand and model name, yet its internal components are newer and faster. Many people feel an attachment to their devices, associating them with memories and experiences, despite the fact that they may be significantly altered from their original state. This discussion doesn't limit itself to mere objects and living beings. It extends into broader applications, such as organizations or even nations. A company might evolve over decades, changing leadership and policies, adapting to market demands. Despite these changes, many still identify it as the same company. National identities experience similar shifts. A nation's culture and policies may change, yet its history and people bind it together under a common identity. The Ship of Theseus encourages us to reflect on the nature of existence and the essence of identity. It invites us to consider that perhaps identity is not fixed or defined solely by physical parts, but is a continuous narrative shaped by experiences, memories, functions, and relationships. So whether we are talking about a ship, a tree, a person, or a community, the truth lies in the connections and stories we weave over time. The idea promotes a richer understanding that goes beyond surface appearances, asking us to probe deeper into what truly holds meaning for us. As you ponder this ship and its journey, consider your own experiences and how they shape your perception of identity in everything around you. Ultimately, the Ship of Theseus reminds us that change is an inherent part of life, and perhaps it is this very change that enriches our understanding of the world and shapes our identities. Each journey it takes is a chapter in its story, whether constructed of new materials or old. This exploration of identity through change invites us to reflect on how we define ourselves and those around us, reminding us that the essence of being is often found in the journey rather than in the components that comprise us. The trolley problem is a well-known thought experiment in ethics that challenges our moral intuitions about right and wrong. Picture this scenario. A trolley is hurtling down a track, and you find yourself at a junction. Ahead, 5 people are tied up on one track, unable to escape. On another track, there is one individual in a similar predicament. You have one option before you. You can pull a lever that will divert the trolley onto the track with one person. This action would save the 5, but would mean the death of the single individual. This moral dilemma forces us to examine our values and the principles we live by. Should we take an action that results in harm to one person to save 5? Many people instinctively feel that the decision to save the greater number is the most morally acceptable choice. After all, if we can act to minimize harm, shouldn't we do so? The apparent logic here is utilitarianism, a principle that suggests the best action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or well-being. However, the trolley problem isn't as simple as it may first appear. The decision to pull the lever means you are taking an active role in causing harm to another. Some argue that it's morally wrong to directly cause someone's death, even if it results in a greater good. This is known as deontological ethics, which emphasizes the importance of following moral rules and duties over the consequences of our actions. From this viewpoint, choosing to divert the trolley becomes an immoral act because it involves intentionally killing someone, regardless of the outcome. Let's consider another layer to this dilemma. Imagine you know the individual on the second track. This person is a friend, a family member, or someone you deeply care about. Would your emotional connection change your decision? Most people would find it much harder to pull that lever, even if it means allowing 5 strangers to die. This further complicates the moral calculation, as our emotions and relationships often influence our ethical decisions. Philosophers have explored various variations of this thought experiment. In one variant, instead of pulling a lever, you could push a large person onto the track to stop the trolley. This option is notably more visceral, as it involves personally pushing someone to their death. Many would balk at this choice, drawing a line at physically harming an individual, even to save 5 others. This distinction highlights how physical involvement in harm can feel different than making a decision indirectly. In contemporary discussions, the trolley problem has become more than a philosophical question. It has practical applications in technology, particularly in the development of autonomous vehicles. Imagine a self-driving car faced with a split-second decision. Should it swerve to avoid hitting pedestrians at the risk of harming its passengers? These real-world scenarios introduce new dimensions to our ethical discussions, as we must now teach machines how to navigate these complex moral landscapes. As we delve into this topic further, consider the implications of cultural differences in moral reasoning. In some cultures, individual rights may take precedence, making the act of choosing to pull the lever or push the person seem objectionable. In other societies, the collective good may be paramount, leading to a greater acceptance of sacrificing one for the many. This variability showcases how our upbringing, values, and experiences shape our ethical frameworks, leading to different conclusions about the same moral dilemma. Moreover, we can expand our thinking beyond the immediate consequences of pulling the lever or not. What if this scenario were set within a broader context, where the one person might have a significant future impact on society, or the 5 were involved in morally questionable activities? These considerations can cloud our judgments and lead us to revisit our initial reactions. Ultimately, the trolley problem serves as a thought-provoking tool that encourages us to reflect on our moral beliefs and the justifications behind them. It invites us to explore the intricacies of ethical decision-making and how we can reconcile competing values. As we ponder these questions, we become more aware of the complexities of human life and the difficult choices we may face. At its core, the trolley problem is not merely about the act of saving lives, but about understanding the moral frameworks that guide our decisions. It challenges us to consider the implications of our choices when confronted with difficult situations. Whether you find yourself leaning towards utilitarianism with a focus on outcomes or deontology, emphasizing moral principles, the problem serves as a reminder that moral reasoning is a nuanced and deeply individual journey. In the realm of philosophical inquiry, few discussions have sparked as much thought and debate as the Euthyphro dilemma. This fascinating dilemma raises profound questions about the nature of morality and the divine. It stems from a dialogue written by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, specifically in a conversation between Socrates and a man named Euthyphro. The Euthyphro dilemma presents a critical question. Is something good because God commands it, or does God command it because it is good? Let's explore this concept with clarity and depth, allowing the implications of this dilemma to unfold. To understand the first part of the dilemma, whether something is good because God commands it, we can consider various scenarios. Suppose, for instance, God were to command an action that we intuitively perceive as morally questionable. Paradoxically, if goodness is merely the result of divine command, then it raises an unsettling concern. Is morality simply a reflection of God's whim? If, for instance, God were to command us to perform an act of cruelty, could we still deem it good simply because it came from a divine source? This perspective suggests that moral values might be arbitrary, contingent on divine will rather than grounded in any inherent quality. If divine command is the basis for goodness, then moral truths seem to float aimlessly, dependent entirely on the divine's temperament or decisions. Imagine a hypothetical scenario in which God commanded us to disregard compassion or mercy. It is an unsettling thought, leading us to question whether goodness can indeed be thus defined. Now let's examine the second side of the Euthyphro dilemma. Does God command something because it is good? This perspective implies that there are moral truths that exist independently of God. In this light, goodness and moral values display an objective quality that transcends divine command. If God is merely recognizing and endorsing existing moral truths, it suggests there is a standard of goodness that even the divine adheres to. This understanding raises an intriguing possibility. If moral truths exist outside of God, then where do they come from? Are they a reflection of a natural order, an innate human understanding, or could they be derived from a universal moral law? If moral principles are indeed universal and unchanging, then they must exist independently of any divine decree. This would mean that God's role is not to determine what is right or wrong, but rather to guide us toward those moral truths that we need to discover for ourselves. However, recognizing that moral truths may exist independent of God poses a challenge to the belief that morality is intrinsically linked to the divine. It raises further questions about the nature of God and his relationship to the moral fabric of the universe. Could it be that God's nature embodies morality rather than dictates it, representing a perfect model of goodness instead of a ruler who declares it? The implications of the Euthyphro dilemma extend into various fields, such as ethics, theology, and even law. In examining legal systems, for instance, we often grapple with the question of whether laws are merely reflections of divine will, or if they emerge from an understanding of justice that exists within society itself. This dilemma also challenges us on a personal level. Consider how we approach ethical dilemmas in our own lives. When making moral decisions, do we rely on what we believe to be divinely ordained, or do we reflect on deeper principles of kindness, fairness, and respect for others? Our understanding of morality may often entail a combination of both divine inspiration and our innate sense of what is right. Furthermore, in exploring the Euthyphro dilemma, we encounter numerous schools of thought, including moral relativism and moral absolutism. Morality is sometimes viewed through a lens of cultural context, suggesting that what is deemed good can vary between societies. Conversely, moral absolutism argues for universal moral principles that apply to all individuals, regardless of cultural background. The Euthyphro dilemma, therefore, acts as a catalyst for profound exploration into the foundations of our ethical beliefs. Each viewpoint invites us to ponder the implications of our understanding of goodness and its relationship to the divine. Rather than providing a conclusive answer, this philosophical inquiry serves to open the doors to deeper discussions around morality, ethics, and the role of the divine in our lives. Ultimately, the Euthyphro dilemma invites us not only to reflect on the origins of our moral beliefs, but also to examine how these beliefs shape our actions and decisions in everyday life. It compels us to seek a balance between divine inspiration and our innate understanding of goodness, encouraging us to think critically and compassionately about the world around us. As we navigate our moral landscapes, may we continue to question, explore, and grow in our understanding of what it truly means to be good. Imagine walking into a grocery store and standing in front of a wall of cereal boxes. You see dozens of options, each boasting different flavors, textures, and nutritional values. At first glance, having so many choices might seem exciting, but as you begin to deliberate over which cereal to pick, a feeling of anxiety starts to creep in. This is the paradox of choice, a concept that suggests that while we often believe that more options lead to greater happiness, the reality can be quite different. The paradox of choice posits that when faced with an abundance of options, individuals can feel overwhelmed. Instead of feeling liberated by choice, we can be paralyzed, spending more time weighing our options than enjoying the act of selecting. You might think about the cereal brands you left out, or that one that had a colorful mascot on the box but not the right nutritional labels. This kind of thinking replaces joy with second-guessing, and suddenly, a simple decision can feel monumental. Psychologist Barry Schwartz, in his book The Paradox of Choice, explores the idea that too many choices can lead to dissatisfaction and regret. Imagine you have a big decision ahead, such as choosing a restaurant for dinner. You gather a list of 20 different places. You might think that more choices will mean a better meal. But after hours of scrolling through reviews and reading menus, you might find yourself wondering whether you made the right choice, even after you've eaten. With each option, there's a sense of missed opportunities. Perhaps that little Italian place down the street would have been better than the trendy sushi spot you eventually settled on. These feelings can seep into many aspects of life. When it comes to relationships, for instance, the idea of having countless paths can sometimes lead to dissatisfaction. In a world where dating apps present us with a myriad of potential partners, individuals may feel they can always do better. Every swipe could lead to the idea that true happiness is just a match away, yet with that mindset, it's easy to overlook the meaningful connections formed in front of us. Interestingly, this phenomenon isn't universal. Some people thrive when presented with more choices, enjoying the hunt of comparison and selection. For them, having many options can lead to higher satisfaction levels, allowing them to tailor decisions to their specific desires. Think of a child in a candy store. The selection might spark joy rather than stress. Young ones can revel in the visible range of colors and flavors, each one promising a unique experience. Their carefree approach usually doesn't come with the burden of overthinking. As we navigate adult life, our experiences shape our perceptions of choice. A person who has learned to sift through options strategically may find joy in variety and stimulation. On the other hand, someone who feels overwhelmed by such decisions might thrive in environments where they have fewer options, where simplicity reigns. Imagine a bakery with one delicious pastry offered each day. The limited choice might lead to delight in knowing exactly what to expect, encouraging a focus on quality rather than quantity. One common area where the paradox plays out is in consumer culture. Shopping has evolved into an art of navigating choices, and businesses have caught on. Consider the vast range of smartphone options available today. The latest models come with myriad features, colors, and pricing tiers. As consumers, we are practically thrown into a sea of specifications. Sure, at first glance, having options seems great, but after hours spent researching, we may realize that we're left feeling less certain about what we truly desire. Instead of happy owners of new gadgets, we can become reluctant and doubt-ridden. What does this mean for our overall sense of fulfillment? It suggests that rather than seeking abundance, we might find contentment in making the most of what we have. Acceptance plays a crucial role in our experiences. When presented with fewer choices, we might develop a deeper appreciation for what we select, finding satisfaction in the decision instead of worrying about the alternatives. Research also indicates that setting priorities can alleviate feelings of being overwhelmed. Establishing criteria can help you navigate through the sea of options. If you want a cereal that's both tasty and healthy, for instance, you could clarify your priorities to make things easier. By focusing on distinct attributes, you can streamline your decision-making process and feel more confident in your choice. At the end of the day, it can be beneficial to remind ourselves that happiness doesn't always correlate to having limited choices. Finding value in simplicity, learning to appreciate fewer, quality options, and embracing acceptance can sometimes pave the way to a more satisfying life. Ultimately, happiness may thrive not in endless variety, but in mindful selection and gratitude for the choices we do make, transforming our perspective from longing for more to cherishing what we have. The omnipotence paradox is a fascinating philosophical question that challenges our understanding of power, particularly in the context of a being considered all-powerful, such as a deity. The classic formulation of the paradox goes like this: can an all-powerful being create a rock so heavy that it cannot lift it? At first glance, this question seems relatively straightforward, but it reveals deeper complexities about the nature of power and the way we define omnipotence. When we say that a being is omnipotent, we typically mean that it has the ability to do anything that is logically possible. This raises the question, is creating a rock so heavy that the all-powerful being cannot lift it a logical possibility? To dive into this paradox, let's begin by examining the two components involved, the idea of an all-powerful being and the concept of lifting a rock. If we accept that this being can perform all tasks without limitation, we might think that it could easily create a rock of any weight. But then, if this being creates a rock that it cannot lift, it seems to contradict the very idea of omnipotence. After all, if the being cannot lift the rock, can it truly be considered all-powerful? On the other hand, if the being chooses not to create such a rock, does that suggest it is limited in some way? This interaction highlights an essential aspect of logical reasoning. The issue at hand is not merely about physical strength or the ability to lift, but revolves around the inherent contradictions that arise when defining omnipotence. Philosophers have pondered this dilemma for centuries, leading to various interpretations and resolutions. Some argue that omnipotence must be understood to operate within the bounds of logical consistency. For example, it makes no sense to say that a being can create a square circle or a married bachelor. These terms are inherently contradictory. Similarly, the act of creating a rock so heavy that it cannot be lifted carries with it a logical inconsistency that challenges the definition of omnipotence itself. Another perspective to consider is the attribute of free will. Some might argue that an all-powerful being can choose to limit its own powers, perhaps out of a desire to allow for genuine free will in the universe. In this scenario, the being could refuse to create the impossibly heavy rock, thus asserting its power in a different form. Rather than seeing this restraint as a limitation, it could be viewed as a conscious choice to act in accordance with a certain moral framework, or to allow for a world where beings have genuine autonomy. Delving further into the implications of this paradox, we can consider analogous situations that illustrate similar dilemmas. Take, for instance, the classic riddle about a person who can do anything but must also follow certain rules set by society or nature. This person might have the power to break any law of physics, but doing so would create chaos and inconsistency in the world. Hence, their power is not boundless, but rather guided by principles that maintain order and coherence. Additionally, the omnipotence paradox invites us to reflect on the nature of existence and the limits of our understanding. When we speak of an all-powerful being, we are often attempting to frame our understanding of the universe and the forces that govern it. Many cultures and belief systems try to comprehend the divine through their own lenses, often resulting in varying interpretations of what an all-powerful being can or cannot do. Through the exploration of the omnipotence paradox, we engage in a rich philosophical dialogue about the nature of power, existence, and the limits of logic. This conversation invites us to confront our assumptions and reconsider the definitions we attach to concepts like omnipotence. It pushes us to think critically about what it means to hold power and what responsibilities come with it. Ultimately, the omnipotence paradox does more than question the nature of an all-powerful being. It serves as a mirror reflecting our own ideas about capability, freedom, and the nature of reality. As we ponder the depths of this philosophical inquiry, we are invited not just to examine the definition of power itself, but to explore the larger questions about the universe we inhabit and our place within it. In a world filled with contradictions and complexities, the discussion surrounding the omnipotence paradox continues to provoke thought and stimulate debates across philosophical and theological realms. Whether one finds the limitations of omnipotence compelling or views them as a curiosity, the conversation remains vibrant and ongoing, reflecting the human quest for understanding that spans cultures and epochs. As we continue to explore these concepts, we engage with some of the most profound questions about existence, purpose, and the nature of the divine. The Sorites paradox presents an intriguing challenge regarding the nature of vagueness in definitions. At its core, it questions how we determine when a collection of objects transitions from one category to another, particularly in reference to heaps. Imagine a heap of sand. It's a clear visual. You can see the mound rising and falling, the grains piling up in a way that the term heap feels absolutely appropriate. Now, suppose we start removing individual grains of sand. At what precise moment does that heap cease to be a heap? If you remove one grain, it's still a heap. Remove another, and it's still a heap. But as you continue this process, there comes a point where you can no longer reasonably refer to it as a heap. This leads to the heart of the paradox. There seems to be no specific grain that can be pointed to and labeled as the one that pushed it past the threshold. This paradox arises due to the vagueness inherent in our language and concepts. The term heap is not strictly defined. It depends on subjective interpretation and context. If you think about it, we frequently encounter similar vague terms in our daily lives. For example, consider the term tall. If we see someone who is 6 feet tall, we might describe them as tall. But how about someone who is 5 feet 11 inches? Are they tall? What about 5 feet 10? At what height does someone become not tall? And does that shift by context, like whether it's a basketball game or a group of children? The Sorites paradox invites us to explore the gray areas of language. These defining moments often resist a clear division, leading to ambiguity in how we categorize objects, people, or even concepts. This vagueness reflects the limitations of our language. It doesn't necessarily mean we lack understanding. It illustrates that our categorizations can be fluid and subjective. Consider other everyday examples. The notion of baldness is similarly vague. At what point is one considered bald? Is it about the number of visible strands of hair? If someone has just one hair left, many would still not consider them bald. Yet if that person were to lose that single remaining hair, they suddenly shift into the bald category. Here again, we observe how language struggles to accommodate the subtle shifts in meaning. The paradox encourages deeper philosophical reflections. It raises questions about how we categorize the world around us, and whether strict classifications can ever truly encompass the complexity of reality. Could it be that the problem isn't with the concepts themselves, but rather with the constraints of our language? Language has an inherent fluidity that reflects the nuances of life, thus leaving room for subjective interpretation and contextual variation. In philosophical discussions, the Sorites paradox serves as a platform for exploring thresholds and borders. It can lead to debates about the nature of categories and whether they exist independently of our perceptions or if they are mere constructs of human language and thought. Some philosophers suggest alternative approaches to address the vagueness inherent in categories, promoting refined classifications or fuzzy logic systems where properties can be partially true rather than strictly true or false. In practical terms, vague definitions like that of a heap or tallness affect numerous fields. Think about law, where the interpretation of terms can lead to vastly different implications. For example, laws might define something as illegal without giving clear indicators of what constitutes an offense. Legal thresholds can be blurry, making it challenging to determine when an action transcends acceptable behavior. The impact of the Sorites paradox can also be observed in everyday decision-making. When we consider actions and their consequences, the boundaries often shift subtly, leaving us grappling with moral and ethical considerations. How many plastic bags can we use before we feel like we are contributing to a problem? At what point does consumption become excessive? The vagueness of definitions can significantly influence our actions, choices, and even our relationships. As you reflect on this paradox, consider how it invites you to re-examine your surroundings. In navigating life's complexities, think about the categories you use and the labels you attach. Are they serving you well? Or might they be too vague, leading to misunderstandings or judgments? The Sorites paradox encourages mindfulness in a world where definitions can often feel slippery. In embracing the ambiguity of life, we might find a greater appreciation for the subtlety of language, allowing room for interpretation and understanding. By recognizing the fluid nature of categories, we open ourselves to richer dialogues and reflections on identity, experience, and the many things that form our lives. The paradox teaches us to appreciate the space between defined concepts and the beauty that lies within ambiguity, inviting a deeper exploration of what it means to categorize and make sense of our world. Simpson's paradox is a fascinating phenomenon in statistics that can lead to surprising and sometimes misleading conclusions. It occurs when a trend appears in several different groups of data but disappears or reverses when these groups are combined. This paradox highlights the importance of understanding the context and the breakdown of data when interpreting statistics. To understand Simpson's paradox, let's consider a classic example involving two hospitals and their rates of patient recovery after surgeries. Suppose Hospital A has a higher total number of patients than Hospital B. Within Hospital A, the recovery rate for a certain type of surgery is 80% for a less complicated case and 50% for a more complicated case. In contrast, Hospital B has a recovery rate of 90% for complicated surgeries and 70% for uncomplicated ones. When we look at the data for Hospital A and Hospital B separately, it seems like Hospital A is performing worse with complicated surgeries, as the recovery rate is only 50%. But when we combine the data from both hospitals, we could find a remarkable trend. Hospital A's overall recovery rate could appear lower than that of Hospital B, despite performing better on similar cases. This is where the paradox arises. The difference in case complexity might skew the overall understanding if not accounted for separately, leading to incorrect assumptions about the quality of care in each hospital. Another notable example can be found in academic performance among different groups of students. Imagine two classes, Class 1 and Class 2, where Class 1 has a majority of students excelling in math, while Class 2 is more evenly split among students with varying abilities. If we measure the overall success of students based on their class performance, it wouldn't be surprising if Class 1 seems to have a higher average grade. However, when we analyze the scores based on subjects, like math versus history, we may discover that the overall average for both subjects favors Class 2 due to its diversity in abilities, where students in Class 2 performed exceptionally well in history, skewing the overall data in a way that misrepresents each class's strengths. Simpson's paradox serves as a crucial lesson about the need for careful data analysis. It teaches us that the way we segment and analyze data can drastically influence our interpretations. This is particularly relevant in fields like healthcare, education, and social science, where policies based on erroneous understandings could lead to significant consequences. The implications of Simpson's paradox extend to real-world scenarios involving public policy and social justice. For instance, if we examine crime rates in two neighborhoods, analysis might suggest a significantly higher crime rate in one area compared to another. However, if we further dig into the types of crimes and their locations across different time periods, we might find that the lower crime rate might actually mask underlying issues that need to be addressed, like poverty or inadequate policing, while the higher rate signifies a more responsive community reporting crimes accurately. In sports, we can see a similar scenario. Consider two basketball players who compete with different teams. Player A may be averaging more points per game, but when we account for variables such as total minutes played, injury levels, and quality of opponents faced, the story can flip entirely. It may turn out that player B, while scoring fewer points overall, is contributing more significantly to their team's success when analyzing advanced metrics, thus leading to a potentially misguided perception of their abilities. This paradox leads us to emphasize the necessity for careful scrutiny of data before jumping to conclusions. It urges us to question what lies beneath the surface and consider the various factors that could oversee such anomalies. As we engage in critical thinking, we become equipped not just to analyze data graphs, but to appreciate the richness and complexity of reality they represent. Ultimately, Simpson's paradox illustrates the necessity to take a nuanced, multidimensional approach in our quest for truth through data. By recognizing that interpretations can vary based on the parameters set, we can avoid pitfalls that result in misleading outcomes. So whether you're reviewing hospital statistics, evaluating educational data, or analyzing sports performances, remember always to look deeper than the surface numbers to reveal the stories they may conceal. Understanding these layers can profoundly enrich our perspectives and enhance decision-making processes across various fields. This awareness not only sharpens our analytical skills, but also cultivates a responsible approach to how we interpret and act upon statistics in everyday life. The liar paradox is a fascinating and thought-provoking topic that challenges our understanding of truth and falsehood. At its core, it revolves around a simple yet perplexing statement. This statement is false. When we encounter this assertion, we find ourselves entangled in a web of contradictions that prompts us to explore the very nature of truth itself. To grasp the essence of the liar paradox, let's break it down. If the statement, "this statement is false," is indeed true, then what it claims must hold. That means the statement is false. However, if it is false, then it is true, leading us back to the beginning. This circular reasoning creates a dilemma. We can't decisively label the statement as true or false without falling into contradiction. This paradox isn't just a curious linguistic oddity. It has a deep philosophical significance. It touches on issues of self-reference and how language can sometimes lead us into logical quagmires. The liar paradox invites us to consider the implications of statements that refer to themselves, a common feature in language and mathematics. This paradox has intrigued philosophers since ancient times. The Greek philosopher Epimenides famously referred to himself when he stated, "All Cretans are liars." If he's telling the truth, then he must be lying, which again leads us back to the contradiction. This self-referential aspect captures the complexity of our attempts to define truth. Further complicating the matter, the liar paradox raises questions about the nature of reality and our understanding of logical constructs. In mathematics, we often deal with statements that hold absolute truth, but the liar paradox disrupts this clear-cut boundary. It reveals that language and logic can sometimes escape the rigid structures we create to classify them. Scholars and logicians have proposed numerous approaches to resolve this paradox. Some argue for a hierarchy of languages or layers of truth, where statements can be categorized based on their context. Others explore the realms of fuzzy logic, suggesting that truth might not simply be binary, but could exist on a spectrum. One intriguing solution comes from the philosopher and logician Alan Turing. He suggested that rather than categorizing all statements as simply true or false, there could be a third category, undefined. A statement that refers to itself might be outside the conventional framework altogether. This approach opens up new ways of thinking about truth and encourages us to embrace complexity rather than seek simplistic resolutions. The liar paradox also finds its way into practical scenarios in everyday life. Consider someone saying, "I always lie." If they are indeed truthful, then they must also be lying, creating a dizzying situation. This kind of paradox reveals the quirks of human language and expression, illustrating how communication can lead to unexpected interpretations. In literature, the liar paradox has inspired writers to play with language and meaning. Authors like Lewis Carroll and Jorge Luis Borges have woven self-referential narratives that invite readers to lose themselves in a maze of words. This creative exploration of logic challenges our perceptions and compels us to question the very statements we encounter in texts. The implications of the liar paradox extend beyond philosophy and literature. In computer science and artificial intelligence, self-referential statements can lead to unpredictable behavior in algorithms. Programming languages and systems must often guard against loops of logic to maintain efficiency and coherence. This aspect shows how theoretical concepts can have real-world applications as we navigate the complexities of technology. Moreover, the liar paradox encourages us to think critically about the truth claims we encounter in our lives. In an age of information overload, we are bombarded with statements of varying degrees of veracity. Learning to recognize and question the reliability of information can empower us to become more discerning consumers of ideas. As we ponder the intricacies of the liar paradox, we are invited to embrace uncertainty and complexity. Rather than seeking to eliminate contradictions, we can explore the richness that ambiguity offers. The paradox serves as a reminder that not everything can be neatly categorized as true or false. Life is often filled with shades of meaning, and the pursuit of understanding can lead us down unexpected paths. In conclusion, the liar paradox remains a captivating topic that intertwines language, logic, and philosophy. It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about truth, inviting us to engage in a deeper exploration of meaning and interpretation. By delving into the complexities of self-referential statements, we can uncover the nuances of language and thought, enriching our understanding of the world around us. The journey through this paradox can be as enlightening as it is perplexing, with each twist and turn offering new insights to contemplate. In the realm of philosophical thought experiments, few examples illustrate the complexities of decision-making as vividly as the story of Buridan's ass. Imagine a donkey, perfectly rational, and endowed with an equal appreciation for two equally tempting piles of hay placed before it. The piles are identical in size, appearance, and aroma. The donkey stands still, contemplating its choices, paralyzed by an overwhelming decision. This curious scenario was presented by the philosopher Jean Buridan in the 14th century. The essence of the thought experiment revolves around the notion of free will, rational choice, and the nature of decision-making itself. You might wonder why a simple scenario involving a donkey sparks such deep philosophical inquiry. It serves as a paradox that poses significant questions about how we make choices when faced with equally appealing options. As the donkey stands there, both piles of hay tantalizingly close, we witness a crucial moment of indecision. The donkey is neither inclined toward one pile over the other, nor able to choose one path without a compelling reason. This inability to make a definitive choice leads it to a condition of complete stagnation. The question arises, what should the donkey do? In theory, one might expect it to choose one pile and begin eating. However, the premise is that the donkey cannot perceive any difference between the two options. Thus, it remains frozen in place, caught in a web of theoretical contemplation. This dilemma serves as a metaphor for human decision-making in our own lives. Picture yourself confronted with two equally attractive job offers, each presenting unique benefits and opportunities for advancement. The thought of committing to one over the other becomes a mental tug-of-war, leading one to weigh pros and cons extensively. Just as with the donkey, the choice is not straightforward, and often the fear of making the wrong decision can induce a paralyzing effect. Moreover, the consequences of indecision become glaringly apparent in the case of Buridan's ass. Instead of finding the joy of munching on the hay, the donkey ultimately faces the predicament of starvation. This illustrates the harsh reality that inaction, in the face of opportunity, can lead to missed chances and unfavorable outcomes. By failing to choose, the donkey inadvertently influences its fate, leading to a dire result that might have been avoided through any decision at all. In this context, Buridan's ass is more than a mere parable about a donkey's struggle. It resonates with the dilemma many individuals face when confronted with choices in life. Each choice, whether minor or significant, carries with it a spectrum of consequences and future ramifications. A simple decision on how to spend an afternoon can lead to unexpected adventures or profound insights. Similarly, failing to decide can close doors and corner us into regret, just as it did for the donkey. Furthermore, this thought experiment compels us to consider the role of emotions in decision-making. Often, we rely on our instincts or feelings to guide our choices, especially when rational thinking becomes overwhelming. Imagine a person contemplating a major life-altering decision, such as moving to a new city. The practical reasons may weigh equally for and against the move, but often it is our emotional responses, longing for familiarity versus the thrill of the unknown, that push us toward making a choice. The implications of Buridan's ass extend further into discussions of determinism versus free will. Are we truly capable of making free choices, or are our decisions predicated on a series of previous experiences and inputs? The donkey, seemingly free to choose, is ultimately constrained by its inability to differentiate between the two options. In a similar vein, humans, while operating under the illusion of free choice, might find their decisions influenced by countless subconscious factors, shaping their experiences and outcomes. As we reflect on this quirky dilemma and its broader meanings, we can draw pivotal lessons about the importance of choice in our own lives. Being intentional about the decisions we face, even when confronted with equally compelling options, is essential to navigating life's challenges effectively. By engaging with our instincts, deliberating without becoming paralyzed, and embracing the possibility of mistakes as a part of experience, we can unlock opportunities that may otherwise be lost. Ultimately, Buridan's ass challenges us to contemplate not just the decisions we make, but how we approach the act of choosing itself. Life is not just a series of binary options. Instead, it is a complex tapestry of possibilities, all woven with the threads of our choices, decisions, and paths taken. Through this lens, we can begin to see that every choice, whether big or small, shapes our journey and contributes to the rich narratives of our lives. Moral luck is a fascinating philosophical concept that explores the nuances of how we judge people's actions based on factors that are often beyond their control. Imagine two drivers, each of whom is navigating a rain-soaked road. One driver carefully slows down, but despite their best efforts to drive cautiously, they accidentally hit a puddle and lose control, causing an accident. The other driver speeds along, feeling confident in their ability to handle the wet conditions. Unfortunately, they also lose control and hit a pedestrian. In this situation, even if both drivers acted with similar intentions and each faced unpredictable circumstances, we often find ourselves reacting differently. The first driver might be viewed with empathy, while the second is frequently met with scorn. This disparity raises a compelling inquiry about why we assign praise and blame when luck plays such a critical role in the outcomes of our actions. The term moral luck refers to the idea that the morality of an individual's action can depend significantly on factors beyond their control. This concept challenges our intuitive sense of justice and accountability. We are inclined to believe that individuals should be judged based purely on their intentions or the choices they made. However, real-life situations reveal that outcomes heavily influenced by chance can skew our perceptions and judgments. Consider the case of two entrepreneurs launching startups in the same industry. One entrepreneur carefully conducts market research and builds a strong business plan. But despite their hard work, their company fails due to an unexpected economic downturn. The other entrepreneur invests in a similar venture, but quickly gains success because of a sudden surge in consumer demand, spurred by unforeseen circumstances. In hindsight, we might celebrate the second entrepreneur while lamenting the misfortune of the first. This inconsistency highlights a fundamental aspect of moral luck. How much of our evaluation is tied to external circumstances rather than personal agency? This concept can lead us to reflect on our own lives. Think about a time when you received recognition or criticism that felt undeserved. Perhaps you delivered a presentation that seemed flawless, yet an unexpected technical difficulty overshadowed your efforts. On the flip side, a colleague might have stumbled through a presentation, yet received accolades simply because their topic was trending. These scenarios serve as reminders of how vastly different outcomes can influence our perceived worth and contributions, regardless of the effort and intention put forth. Philosophers have debated moral luck's implications, suggesting various forms of luck that might affect our moral standing. For instance, constitutive luck refers to the personality traits and inclinations we are born with. If one person has a temperament that drives them to be more empathetic, while another is naturally more selfish, are they both equally responsible for their moral choices? The actions of individuals can often reflect their innate characteristics, shaped by a plethora of external factors. Then there is circumstantial luck, which deals with the situations people find themselves in. The same person might act heroically in a crisis, but might also choose to act selfishly in a different environment. How much of that behavior is attributable to the unique circumstances surrounding their actions? Consider someone who acts bravely during a natural disaster, saving lives. In another context, they might have been just as likely to turn away. The randomness of life places moral dilemmas on a spectrum influenced by luck. Another form of moral luck is resultant luck, which refers to the outcomes of actions. This has been famously illustrated in discussions concerning the difference between intending harm and accidentally causing it. If a person intends to scare someone with a harmless prank but inadvertently causes injury, they might be judged more harshly than someone who aimed to injure and succeeded. The distinction focuses on result rather than intention, prompting us to question the fairness of our judgments. In engaging with moral luck, it's essential to consider how we shape our social narrative. Our inclination to judge based on the success or failure of actions influenced by chance often runs deep. We tend to construct narratives that attribute agency to individuals, creating a moral landscape where success is lauded while failure is condemned. This tendency might stem from a desire to make sense of our world and align our actions with desirable outcomes. However, it can lead to unfair consequences for those impacted by elements outside their control, encouraging a cycle of judgment that can be harsh and unyielding. So what can we learn from understanding moral luck? Firstly, it invites a more compassionate view of humanity, urging us to recognize the complexities of individual situations. It reminds us that behind every action there is a story riddled with chance, circumstance, and uncontrollable factors. Encouraging empathy helps to cultivate a more supportive society, where we acknowledge the rolling dice of luck in our moral evaluations. Moreover, recognizing the role of luck can inspire a more balanced approach to our decisions. When we better understand that circumstances can sway actions, we can strive to create environments that encourage fairness. Promoting policies that support individuals during times of hardship acknowledges that not everyone has the same starting point. Navigating moral luck teaches us about humility in judgment and compassion in our interactions. In embracing this complexity, we find opportunities to develop greater understanding between people and to foster environments where personal agency is acknowledged yet not overstated, leading to a healthier and more equitable society. The problem of evil is a fascinating topic that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. At its core, it grapples with a challenging question. If there is an all-powerful and all-good deity, why is there evil in the world? This inquiry touches on philosophy, theology, and even everyday human experiences, as it challenges our understanding of morality, suffering, and the very nature of existence. To delve into this problem, we can start by defining what we mean by evil. Evil can be understood in many forms, such as natural disasters like earthquakes and hurricanes, which cause immense suffering. Then, there are moral evils, which arise from human actions, such as violence, theft, and injustice. These manifestations of evil lead us to question the existence of a benevolent deity who has the power to prevent them. One approach to understanding this dilemma is the concept of free will. Many theists argue that a truly good God grants humans free will, allowing individuals to make choices. This freedom is essential for genuine love and moral responsibility. However, with this freedom comes the potential for evil. If people can choose good, they also have the capacity to choose evil. This perspective suggests that evil is a consequence of human decisions rather than a flaw in God's nature. Imagine a world where everyone is forced to act rightly, with no capacity to choose otherwise. Such a scenario would lack authenticity. Actions motivated by constraint wouldn't inspire love, goodwill, or genuine compassion. In this light, the existence of evil becomes a necessary condition for free will, opening the door to deeper human experiences. Another angle to consider is the notion of a greater good. Some argue that what appears to be evil may serve a purpose that we cannot comprehend. For instance, suffering might lead to personal growth or greater empathy towards others. In challenging circumstances, people tend to forge stronger bonds and learn valuable lessons. Take the example of a community that comes together after a natural disaster. In the aftermath of such troubling events, acts of kindness, solidarity, and compassion can shine brightly. Thus, this perspective posits that God allows evil to exist so that greater goods may emerge from it. Theologians also delve into the concept of the fall, which traces back to religious narratives. In many traditions, the introduction of evil correlates with the choices made by the first humans. This original disobedience is seen as a pivotal moment that unleashed brokenness into the world. Some might question whether it is fair to inherit imperfections based on the actions of others. However, this narrative underscores the complexity of human nature and the ongoing struggle between good and evil. Philosophically speaking, some thinkers present the idea that evil may serve as a necessary contrast to understand goodness. If there were no pain, how would we appreciate pleasure? The presence of hardship can deepen our gratitude for joy and well-being. In essence, evil helps to define and highlight the virtue of goodness. This relational understanding can shift the focus from attempting to eradicate evil entirely to learning how to navigate and incorporate it into our lives constructively. As we evaluate the existence of evil, it is crucial to consider the broader context of the universe. Some philosophical perspectives suggest that our perception of time and existence is limited. We see events unfolding in a linear fashion, but a timeless deity might perceive a vastly different reality, where all events exist simultaneously. This broader perspective could encompass a larger purpose behind what we experience, even in our darkest moments. Furthermore, consider the role of good amidst the presence of evil. Every day, countless acts of kindness, generosity, and love occur, often overshadowed by negative news and events. People devote their lives to helping others, whether through charitable work, supporting those in need, or standing up against injustice. These positive actions provide a counterbalance, prompting us to reflect on the goodness that also forms part of the human experience. In contemplating the problem of evil, one cannot overlook the truth that it is a deeply personal matter. Individuals wrestle with questions of faith and morality based on their experiences. Those who have faced profound loss may struggle to reconcile their pain with the belief in an all-powerful and loving deity. Others may find solace in their faith during trying times, drawing strength from their spiritual convictions. Ultimately, the problem of evil invites a rich discussion that engages thinkers from diverse perspectives. It encourages an exploration of the complexities of existence, human choice, and the pursuit of understanding the nature of good and evil. While there may not be definitive answers, the journey through these questions fosters personal growth, empathy, and a deeper appreciation for the intricacies of life. It also reveals the many layers of human experience, where both suffering and joy coexist, shaping our understanding of the world around us. Zeno's paradoxes are a collection of thought experiments that challenge our understanding of motion and time. They were created by the ancient Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea in the 5th century BCE. These paradoxes serve to explore the complexities of infinity and the nature of reality, provoking deep philosophical discussions that continue to this day. One of the most famous of Zeno's paradoxes is known as Achilles and the tortoise. In this scenario, we imagine a race between the swift Achilles and a slow-moving tortoise. To make things interesting, let's give the tortoise a head start of 100 meters. Now, when Achilles begins to run at his incredible speed, he quickly reaches the point where the tortoise started. But in that time, the tortoise has moved forward a bit, let's say to 10 meters ahead. When Achilles reaches that point, the tortoise has again moved forward, now to about 20 meters. This process continues, and each time Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved ahead just a little further. Zeno argues that Achilles can never actually overtake the tortoise because there will always be some distance by which the tortoise is ahead. This paradox highlights a curious aspect of motion. It leads us to question the continuity of time and space, and whether the infinite divisions of distance could somehow prevent Achilles from winning the race. Another intriguing paradox from Zeno is known as the dichotomy paradox. Imagine you are embarking on a journey to a particular destination, let's say a park that is 100 meters away. According to Zeno, before you can arrive at the park, you must first travel half the distance, which is 50 meters. Once you reach the 50-meter mark, you still have to cover half of the remaining distance, which is 25 meters. Then you reach 75 meters, but you still have to travel half of the remaining distance of 12.5 meters, and so on, infinitely. In this line of reasoning, Zeno suggests that because you will always have more distances to cover before reaching the park, you cannot actually start your journey or reach your destination. Zeno's paradoxes raise profound questions about motion, challenging our intuitions about the world around us. They invite us to contemplate whether motion truly exists as we perceive it, suggesting that if we break down movement into infinitesimally smaller parts, we may never actually perceive the completion of a journey. Another notable paradox is the arrow paradox. Zeno invites us to consider an arrow in flight. At any single instant of time, the arrow occupies a specific position, and in that instant, it is not moving. However, if we segment time into infinitely small moments, at every single moment the arrow remains stationary. If this is true, then how can we say the arrow is moving? This paradox forces us to confront our notions of time and continuous motion. It suggests that if every moment is static, the entire concept of movement becomes questionable. Zeno's paradoxes also touch on the idea of plurality versus unity. Consider the existence of motion. If every motion requires a series of steps or moments, where does motion come from? This leads to further philosophical contemplation about the fabric of reality itself. If there are infinite points in time and space, how do we understand the concrete continuity that we experience? Some later philosophers and mathematicians have attempted to resolve Zeno's paradoxes through the development of calculus and the concept of limits. They argue that while the sequence of infinite steps may seem insurmountable, summing those steps gives us a finite result in the context of motion. However, despite these modern explanations, Zeno's paradoxes retain their power as stimulating thought experiments, illuminating the complexities of understanding space, time, and motion. Essentially, they remind us that our perceptions of reality are often shaped by philosophical reflections, challenging us to dig deeper into the concepts we take for granted. As we consider Zeno's paradoxes, we engage with the fundamental aspects of existence. They serve as a bridge to explore deeper philosophical questions about the nature of reality, how we perceive time and movement, and how these concepts interact within our understanding of the universe. Perhaps Zeno's work was not just an exercise in logic or mathematics, but an invitation to think critically about the things we often assume to be true. Ultimately, Zeno's paradoxes encourage a journey that transcends mere physical movement, guiding us through a labyrinth of thought that reveals the intricacies of time, space, and existence. They remind us that even the simplest actions or movements involve complex layers of thought and philosophy, urging us to continually seek understanding and clarity in the world around us. Each paradox serves as a lens, allowing us to examine the nature of reality from unique and often mind-bending perspectives. As we navigate through these philosophical explorations, we engage with rich ideas that are as relevant today as they were in the time of Zeno, illustrating the enduring power of philosophical inquiry. In the world of game theory, one of the most fascinating scenarios is known as the prisoner's dilemma. This situation reflects a problem in decision-making, where two individuals must choose between cooperation and betrayal, highlighting the complexities of strategic interactions among rational players. To understand this scenario better, let's consider a simple yet striking example. Imagine two criminals, Alice and Bob, who have been arrested for a crime and are being interrogated in separate rooms. Each has two choices. They can either betray the other by confessing to the crime or remain silent. The surprising twist is that the outcome of their choices is not merely determined by their individual decisions, but by their simultaneous choices. If both choose to remain silent, they will each receive a light sentence, since there isn't enough evidence to convict them seriously. However, if one confesses while the other remains silent, the one who confesses goes free, and the silent partner receives a heavy sentence. What this dilemma illustrates is a journey through the landscape of rationality and self-interest. From a purely logical standpoint, the rational choice for each prisoner is to betray the other. After all, if Alice believes Bob will remain silent, her logical move is to confess, thus gaining freedom. Conversely, if Alice believes Bob will confess, she also minimizes her sentence by confessing. The anxiety lies in the uncertainty of the other's choice, which creates a paradox where both players may end up with worse outcomes if they act in their self-interest. Now, let's dive deeper into the possible outcomes. Should both individuals choose to cooperate by remaining silent, they both benefit greatly from a lesser sentence, which is the optimal outcome for the pair. This outcome reflects teamwork and trust, where mutual cooperation leads to a better mutual benefit. On the contrary, if both choose to betray each other, they will each face a harsher penalty, which is the least favorable result for both, despite being the rational choice. The crux of the prisoner's dilemma challenges the notion of self-interest. It illustrates that rational individuals may find themselves in situations where the best choice for them as individuals leads to the worst outcome for both. This dynamic raises important questions about human behavior, social interactions, and the balance between self-interest and collective welfare. In broader real-life applications, the prisoner's dilemma can be seen in various contexts, including economics, politics, and social interactions. For instance, consider businesses competing in a market. Each company has the option to either lower prices to attract more customers or maintain high prices while hoping for better profit margins. If both companies opt to lower prices, they could end up with reduced profits. But if one chooses to keep prices high while the other drops them, the one who lowers them may capture a larger market share. Similarly, in environmental issues, countries face choices regarding pollution and resource usage. If all countries cooperate to limit emissions, they collectively benefit from a healthier planet. However, if one country decides to ignore agreements and pollute, it may gain an economic advantage at the expense of collective well-being, leading to a scenario where everyone ultimately suffers from the environmental degradation. Moreover, the dilemma extends to personal relationships as well. Friends may find themselves in situations where supporting each other could lead to mutual benefits, or acting out of self-interest could potentially damage the relationship, illustrating the delicate balance between individual goals and the well-being of the group. Over time, strategies for overcoming the prisoner's dilemma have evolved. One such strategy is known as tit for tat, where a player begins by cooperating and then mirrors the opponent's previous move, thus promoting a reciprocal approach to interactions. This method emphasizes trust and encourages long-term relationships over short-term gains. Each time the scenario plays out, it provides fresh insights into human behavior and the motivations behind choices we make. The prisoner's dilemma invites individuals to contemplate the nature of cooperation, trust, and the importance of collective responsibility. It challenges us to reflect on how decisions made in moments of uncertainty can have ripple effects, not only for ourselves, but also for those around us. The implications of these interactions are profound. In essence, they remind us that while we may operate as individuals in our decision-making, the outcomes often hinge on the intention, behavior, and trust between us and others. The dance between cooperation and competition is an intricate one, woven into the fabric of human experience. As we navigate through life's dilemmas, whether they pertain to relationships, business dynamics, or global issues, the lessons from the prisoner's dilemma resonate. They call for a conscious evaluation of our decisions in a world where our choices impact not only our own paths, but also those of others. Ultimately, the way we engage with the challenges of collaboration versus self-interest reflects our values and shapes the world we inhabit together. Epistemic paradox is a fascinating and complex topic that challenges our understanding of knowledge and belief. It invites us to ponder the very foundations of what we claim to know and how our beliefs are formed. At its core, the epistemic paradox raises questions about the nature of certainty, evidence, and the interplay between knowledge and opinion. To begin with, let's explore the concept of knowledge. Knowledge is often defined as justified, true belief. This means that for someone to know something, three conditions must be satisfied. The belief must be true, the individual must believe it, and there must be adequate justification for that belief. However, instances arise where these conditions can clash, leading to situations where we think we know something when, in fact, we might not. One classic example is the Gettier problem, named after philosopher Edmund Gettier. Imagine a scenario where you see a friend standing in front of a red car, and you believe that your friend owns a red car. If the belief turns out to be true, you might feel justified in claiming that you know this. However, Suppose your friend just got a ride in that red car, and it isn't theirs. Here, you have a true belief based on faulty justification. This scenario illustrates the challenges of equating knowledge with simple belief and justification, exposing a significant limitation in our understanding. Another layer of complexity is added when we consider beliefs shaped by evidence. Consider the idea of the lottery. When someone buys a ticket, they might believe they will win based on the excitement of the possibility. Yet, statistically, the chance of winning is incredibly low. Here, belief and statistical probability create a paradox. The individual can hold on to their belief with a sense of optimism, even though the evidence suggests otherwise. Moreover, epistemic paradoxes can also emerge from conflicting beliefs. Take the case of two neighbors, each firmly believing that their own dog is the best. One neighbor's pride is based on experience and bonding with the dog, while the other neighbor's belief is tied to hearsay and admiration. Both hold their beliefs with conviction, but can both be right? This situation illustrates how the subjective nature of belief complicates our understanding of objective truth, leading us to question how different perspectives coexist. Philosophers have utilized epistemic paradoxes to probe deeper into the nature of knowledge. For instance, the paradox of the ravens involves an observation that seems counterintuitive. If observing a black raven supports the hypothesis that all ravens are black, does the observation of a green apple also provide support for that hypothesis? This raises questions about confirmation bias and whether the number of observations affects the validity of a claim. Epistemologists have since debated what constitutes good evidence and how it can sometimes lead us astray. In practice, epistemic paradoxes play a crucial role in our daily lives. Consider the implications in politics or media. People often hold beliefs based on selective information that aligns with their views, creating echo chambers. Here, individuals might be convinced they possess accurate knowledge while ignoring conflicting evidence. This phenomenon underscores the difficulty of discerning truth in a world filled with information overload and biased narratives. The realm of epistemic paradoxes also intersects with issues of trust and authority. We often rely on experts to provide knowledge. However, when experts disagree on a critical issue, it unleashes a storm of confusion. For instance, during public health emergencies, conflicting messages from authorities can lead to widespread uncertainty. In these moments, the paradox of what we should believe becomes starkly evident. How do we choose whom to trust, and what sources of knowledge to accept as valid? While some might feel disheartened by the implications of epistemic paradoxes, they actually present an opportunity for growth and critical thinking. Recognizing the nuances of knowledge and belief encourages us to adopt a more skeptical and inquisitive approach toward the information we encounter. It invites us to question our assumptions and remain open to the possibility of change. Ultimately, by challenging the nature of knowledge itself, we can develop a richer understanding of the world around us. In summary, epistemic paradoxes illuminate the tension between knowledge and belief, urging us to rethink our concepts of truth and justification. They reveal the complexities inherent in our understanding of evidence and subjective experience. More importantly, they empower us to pursue knowledge with a critical mind, fostering an environment where inquiry thrives and deeper truths can be unearthed. As we embark on this intellectual journey, let us embrace the uncertainty and marvel at the intricacies of knowledge and belief, knowing that every question we ask opens doors to further exploration and understanding. Imagine a world where every moment of your life is filled with pure joy and satisfaction. Picture a device, often referred to as the experience machine, which could connect you to a virtual reality so vivid and immersive that every experience you have is one of unadulterated pleasure. You could live out your wildest fantasies, explore exotic lands, or achieve your deepest aspirations without any of the uncertainties or hardships of the real world. But would you choose to plug into such a machine? Let's take a moment to envision what this experience machine truly offers. It promises a reality where pain, disappointment, and struggle are non-existent. You would be free to explore a life where anything is possible. Want to be an astronaut traveling through the cosmos? Simply plug in. Dream of being a renowned artist whose work captivates the world? That could be your reality with just the push of a button. For some, the idea of a life lived through the experience machine is incredibly tempting. It provides a tantalizing glimpse of a life without limitations, where every day is filled with contentment. You could indulge in adventures without risk, savor relationships that never lead to heartbreak, and achieve success without the hard work usually needed to attain your goals. Imagine having the ability to sculpt your life exactly the way you want it, without the constraints of reality. However, this scenario leads us to question what makes our experiences truly meaningful. Consider for a moment the depth of joy that arises only after overcoming challenges. If every experience is pleasurable, does it lose its significance? Would a life without struggle and adversity truly be fulfilling, or would it lead to a sense of emptiness? The power of resilience and personal growth often comes from navigating tough times. If those were eliminated, would happiness still hold the same value? Take a look at human history and the tales of individuals who have faced adversity. Think of the stories of triumph and determination that inspire us. These narratives often highlight the profound sense of achievement that accompanies overcoming obstacles. A firefighter who saves lives, a scientist who discovers groundbreaking innovations, or an artist who pours their soul into their work. All these individuals find meaning in their struggles and experiences that shape their identities. Moreover, ponder the relationships we build with others. Many of our most cherished memories are born from shared experiences, including both the joyful and challenging moments. Would the relationships forged in the comfort of an experience machine be as profound? Would love feel genuine if it were programmed? When we connect with others, it is often through the shared journey of facing real-life challenges together. Laughter, overcoming a hard day, comforting a friend in sorrow, or celebrating a hard-earned victory, these moments create bonds that an artificial reality may never replicate. We must also consider the nature of choice and autonomy. The experience machine offers a way to remove free will by creating a reality designed solely to provide pleasure. Yet, having the ability to choose our experiences, even the difficult ones, enriches our lives and nurtures our growth as individuals. Could it be that the journey, with all its ups and downs, is more rewarding than living in a perfection where every moment is scripted? As we explore these questions, it's interesting to consider the implications of our choices. If given the opportunity to plug into the experience machine, would we sacrifice the richness of life for a constant stream of pleasure? Or would we choose to embrace a reality that comes with uncertainty, containing a mosaic of experiences that contribute to our understanding of joy and fulfillment? What if there were a middle ground? Imagine a scenario where we could extract the essence of joyful experiences and incorporate them into our real lives. Perhaps we could learn to seek gratitude in moments of simplicity, enabling us to appreciate happiness without needing an escape from reality. The true value of experiences may lie in their ability to teach us resilience, empathy, and the beauty of connection. Ultimately, the choice to engage with an experience machine leads us to a deeper consideration of what it means to live a meaningful life. While the allure of perpetual pleasure is undeniable, the heart of our existence may thrive on the diversity of experiences, some uplifting, others challenging. Would life be less valuable if pleasure were guaranteed? As you reflect on these thoughts, consider what you truly value in your journey. Could it be the highs and lows that add depth to your existence? Each experience has the potential to teach us something, shaping who we are and how we connect with the world. In the end, perhaps the most fulfilling path is one that embraces the full spectrum of life, leading us to growth, connection, and an understanding of joy that is uniquely our own. The Munchausen trilemma is a fascinating philosophical concept that delves into the nature of knowledge and truth. It is named after Baron von Munchausen, a fictional character known for his outrageous tales and self-serving heroics. This trilemma highlights a significant challenge faced by anyone seeking to establish a definitive proof of truth. Regardless of how we try to justify our beliefs, we inevitably encounter a paradox. Imagine for a moment that you are trying to prove a statement, like, "The sky is blue." You might think you can support this claim with observations, scientific facts, or logical reasoning. But the Munchausen trilemma presents three main approaches to justification that lead us into a complex maze. First, there is the circular reasoning approach. Here, you might support your claim with another statement that assumes your conclusion is true. For instance, if you argue that the sky is blue because it appears blue to us, you're not proving the claim in any real sense. Instead, you're just restating it in a different way. This raises the question, how can we be sure of the validity of the initial premise? Circular reasoning often leads to endless loops of assertion, leaving the question of truth unresolved. Next is the infinite regress approach. This represents another way to think about justification. If you attempt to validate your initial claim by providing support, then a follow-up question arises. What supports this support? You might say that the sky is blue because of specific wavelengths of light. But then, what supports this understanding of light? This chain continues indefinitely, where each justification merely begs for another, preventing any ultimate conclusion from being reached. Infinite regress challenges our ability to find a solid foundation for our knowledge. Finally, we encounter the axiom approach. In this model, we try to bypass the problem by asserting certain beliefs as self-evident truths or fundamental axioms. For instance, one might claim that the sky appears blue due to the Earth's atmosphere scattering sunlight. However, the challenge here is that these axioms themselves are subject to scrutiny. What makes them self-evident? How do we escape the questions surrounding their validity? Even these established truths can be questioned, making it difficult to arrive at an absolute certainty. By navigating these three paths outlined in the Munchausen trilemma, we see the limitations and complexities involved in claims to knowledge and truth. The trilemma suggests that establishing a grounded proof of any statement or belief is ultimately elusive, leading us into a philosophical conundrum. It highlights how every assertion we make about reality can be called into question, prompting deeper introspection and debate. If we take a step back and look at our everyday experiences, we can see this phenomenon at play. Consider how we often rely on consensus or societal norms as a basis for what we accept as true. For example, think about how food is culturally defined. Different regions have varied beliefs about what dishes are considered a delicacy. This leads to subjective interpretations of taste and value, compelling us to question the concept of universality and truth. Moreover, when discussing morality, we often find ourselves in battlegrounds of opinion. What is seen as right in one culture may be deemed wrong in another. These differences reveal how truth isn't a singular entity, but rather a complex tapestry woven from diverse perspectives and experiences. As we navigate these nuances, we might wonder how we can truly support our moral claims without facing the challenges posed by the Munchausen trilemma. In the realm of science, we regularly operate under the assumption that we can derive truths through experimentation and observation. Yet, this process itself is laden with assumptions that could be called into question. For example, every scientific law is built upon a foundation of hypotheses, which are in turn based on previous theories. Thus, the quest for undeniable truth oscillates within a web of uncertainty, begging further inquiry. Engaging with the Munchausen trilemma invites us to become more aware of the assumptions we make in our daily reasoning. It encourages an intellectual humility that values questioning over carte blanche acceptance. In a world where we are inundated with information, understanding the limitations of our proofs pushes us to foster an environment where skepticism and curiosity thrive. As we ponder the broader implications of this philosophical trilemma, we can appreciate how it relates to our shared human experience. We live in a time when misinformation spreads rapidly, and the understanding of truth has become a contested terrain. The Munchausen trilemma serves as a poignant reminder to critically analyze the foundations of our beliefs, be they scientific, moral, or philosophical. Ultimately, while the impossibility of proving any truth may seem disheartening, it also opens the door to a richer dialogue. It invites us to engage with complexity, seek out diverse perspectives, and approach the concept of knowledge with a sense of wonder rather than certainty. Embracing this journey not only deepens our understanding of truth, but enriches our experiences as we navigate the ever-evolving tapestry of human belief and understanding. Imagine a scene in a bustling coffee shop. You spot your friend Sarah sitting at a window table. You wave hello and make your way over to join her. As you approach, you notice the delicious-looking pastry on her plate, and without hesitation, you confidently tell her that she is enjoying a warm chocolate croissant. You have a reasonable belief that she is eating one because of what you see and your past experiences with her choice of pastries. However, unbeknownst to you, Sarah is actually having a blueberry muffin. She had set the croissant down just moments before you arrived because it was too dry. Your observation, although reasonable at the moment, led to a false conclusion. While you had a justified belief that she was enjoying a chocolate croissant, the truth is that she was not. This scenario highlights the essence of what philosophers call a Gettier problem. The Gettier problem challenges the traditional notion of knowledge, which is often defined as justified true belief. This concept can be broken down into three parts. First, to know something, you must believe it. Second, that belief must be true. And third, you must have justification for that belief. At a glance, this seems straightforward. However, Gettier situations reveal situations where all three conditions are met. Yet intuitively, we wouldn't say that the person truly knows what they believe. Let's consider another example. Picture a college student named Jake who studies diligently for an exam in a class where he frequently struggles. On the day of the exam, he walks into the classroom, confidently says he knows the material, and chooses the answer he believes is correct based on his preparation. However, unbeknownst to him, the professor decided to swap questions at the last minute and use one from an entirely different textbook. Miraculously, Jake's answer aligns with the new, unexpected question, making it correct. Jake had a justified belief, which turned out to be true, but does he truly know the answer? In both instances, we see how individuals can fulfill the conditions for knowledge, yet fall short in a meaningful way. This philosophical conundrum was famously presented by Edmund Gettier in 1963 and has since stimulated extensive discussion within the philosophy community. Another scenario could involve two friends, Tom and Lisa, who are out hiking one clear day. Tom points to what he believes is a bear drinking from a stream, having read about local wildlife before their trip. He expresses confidence in his observation, and Lisa is inclined to agree with him. They take pictures, exclaim in excitement, and share the moment excitedly. Later, they find out that what they actually saw was a shadowy rock formation that merely resembled a bear. Tom believed he was correct, and his belief was indeed justified by what he thought he observed, yet the truth reveals that his knowledge was incorrect. These paradoxes lead us to ponder the implications for areas such as science, law, and everyday life. In science, researchers may confidently support a theory based on observable data, only to later find that key variables were overlooked. In law, a juror might believe they have a justified understanding of a case based on witness testimonies, but if those testimonies are misleading, the conclusions drawn could be unjust, despite the conviction. Exploring the Gettier problem not only raises questions about the nature of knowledge, but also invites us to reflect on how we gather and interpret information. It urges us to look beyond surface observations or immediate interpretations, reminding us that context, deeper understanding, and careful consideration are essential in our quest for truth. In everyday scenarios, we constantly seek certainty in our beliefs. Think about moments when you confidently make a decision based on your prior experiences or observations. Perhaps you've recommended a restaurant to a friend based on a recent meal you enjoyed there, only to find the quality has dropped since your last visit. You justified your belief based on the past, but the current reality had changed. This highlights how knowledge isn't just about having true beliefs, but also how we connect those beliefs to the evolving world around us. What makes the exploration of Gettier problems particularly fascinating is the creative ways they stimulate philosophical inquiry. Scholars and thinkers continuously seek to understand what constitutes real knowledge, leading to debates about the definition of justification, the relevance of context, and even the limits of human perception. Discussions surrounding Gettier problems continue to evolve, inspiring new theories and perspectives that challenge our understanding of knowledge itself. As we navigate through life, acknowledging the nuances of belief, truth, and justification enriches our understanding of the world. While certainty can provide comfort, it's essential to embrace the complexity of knowledge. By questioning and reflecting on our beliefs and the evidence we gather, we foster a mindset that values inquiry and discovery over dogmatic certainty. Understanding Gettier problems illuminates the human experience, showing that knowledge is a complex interplay of belief, truth, and justification. It invites us to consider the depth behind what we think we know, pushing us to recognize that reality often challenges our preconceived notions. Thus, in every endeavor, we should remain curious, questioning, and open to the surprising layers that unfold as we seek understanding in an ever-shifting world. The rabbit duck illusion is a fascinating and thought-provoking visual phenomenon that invites us to explore the complexities of perception and how it can shape our understanding of reality. This unique illustration features an image that can be interpreted as either a rabbit or a duck, depending on how a viewer focuses their gaze. At first glance, you may clearly see one animal, but with a slight shift in perspective, the other creature emerges, revealing the dual nature of the image. This simple, yet compelling graphic serves as a springboard for deep philosophical discussions about how we perceive the world around us. Consider how our minds can interpret the same visual input in multiple ways. This phenomenon goes beyond mere optics and touches on the cognitive processes that govern our perception. It highlights the idea that what we see is not always an objective reality, but rather a subjective experience shaped by our individual minds. In the case of the rabbit-duck illusion, how we interpret the image can depend on various factors, including our previous experiences, expectations, and even our emotions. The dual nature of the rabbit-duck illusion raises questions about the reliability of our perceptions. In a world filled with varying viewpoints and experiences, how often do we find ourselves interpreting the same situation in vastly different ways? For example, two friends might witness the same event but recall it differently due to their backgrounds and perspectives. This divergence can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts, but can also enrich conversations and relationships by offering new insights. Philosophers have long debated the concept of perception and its implications for understanding reality. One prominent question is whether our perceptions can ever truly reflect the external world. Can we trust what our senses tell us? The rabbit-duck illusion exemplifies this philosophical inquiry, as it underscores the idea that visual stimuli are processed by our brains in ways that are not always straightforward. This invites a deeper discussion about the nature of reality itself. Is reality a fixed entity that exists outside our interpretation, or is it something that we actively construct through our perceptions? This discussion also branches into the fields of psychology and neuroscience, where researchers study how our brains process visual information. The brain is a complex organ that interprets signals received from our senses and assigns meaning to them. The illusion serves as a reminder that our cognitive biases, mental shortcuts, and contextual cues can all influence how we perceive and interact with the world. By examining the rabbit-duck illusion, we gain insight into the intricate workings of our minds and how perception is an active process rather than a passive one. Moreover, the rabbit-duck illusion can serve as a metaphor for other dualities in life, such as optimism and pessimism. Just as one person might see a rabbit while another sees a duck, individuals often hold contrasting perspectives on various issues, from politics to personal relationships. This duality can lead to meaningful dialogues that promote understanding and empathy, encouraging us to appreciate and learn from differing viewpoints. In artistic realms, the rabbit-duck illusion has inspired creators to play with perception in their work. Artists and illustrators often use visual ambiguity to challenge viewers' understanding and provoke thought. This approach invites the audience to engage more deeply with the artwork, as they are urged to navigate between different interpretations and meanings. Such artistic techniques remind us that art is not just about representation, but also about the emotions and ideas it evokes within the viewer's mind. Additionally, the rabbit-duck illusion resonates with the concept of paradigm shifts in various fields, including science. A classic example of this is how the heliocentric model of the solar system was once debated and regarded as heretical before it became widely accepted. Just as the illusion forces our brains to choose between two interpretations, scientific advancements often require us to shift our thinking and embrace new perspectives. The apparent contradiction between the rabbit and duck becomes less of a conflict and more of an opportunity for growth, whether in philosophy, science, or everyday life. So as we observe this captivating visual illusion, we are reminded of the power of perception and its influence on our understanding of reality. The rabbit-duck illusion challenges us to question our assumptions and encourages us to explore the richness found in diverse perspectives. It demonstrates that reality is not always a single narrative, but an intricate tapestry woven from multiple threads of experience and understanding. Engaging with these complexities can foster open-mindedness and a genuine appreciation for the myriad ways individuals interpret the world around them. In conclusion, the rabbit-duck illusion serves as a gateway into a deeper exploration of perception, reality, and the philosophical inquiries that arise from our interpretations. It illustrates that our understanding is shaped by a multitude of factors and invites us to embrace the ambiguities of existence. By acknowledging the dual nature of our perceptions, we can cultivate a greater appreciation for the diverse viewpoints that surround us, ultimately enriching our lives and interactions with others. In a world filled with information, the way we present our ideas can significantly impact how they are received. This brings us to an intriguing concept known as the Dr. Fox hypothesis, named after a fascinating experiment that highlighted the power of presentation over content. This hypothesis explores how well-delivered nonsense can lead audiences to perceive meaningless statements as profound and insightful, which opens up a discussion about the importance of style in communication. Imagine attending a lecture where the speaker is charismatic and authoritative, using sophisticated language and engaging visuals. As you listen, you might find yourself mesmerized by their confidence and enthusiasm. Now consider this. What if the content of their talk was complete nonsense? The Dr. Fox hypothesis suggests that, despite the absence of meaningful information, the delivery alone can create an illusion of competence and understanding among the audience. The original experiment, conducted by Dr. Richard Fox, involved a fictional lecture given by an actor who used scientific jargon and a confident demeanor to discuss a pseudoscientific topic. The audience, filled predominantly with professionals and academics, left the session convinced of the lecture's validity and brilliance. They praised the speaker's eloquence and the innovative nature of the concepts presented. This highlights a crucial aspect of human psychology. People often equate clarity and charisma with credibility. Consider a theatrical performance. Whether it's the dazzling costumes, dramatic lighting, or the passionate delivery of lines, the audience is drawn in, and their emotions are stirred. The same principle applies to lectures or presentations. When a speaker captivates their audience with engaging storytelling, compelling analogies, or vivid examples, listeners may overlook logical inconsistencies or lack of substantial evidence in the content itself. This emotional engagement can overshadow the actual substance, leading to a distorted perception of the material. The implications of the Dr. Fox hypothesis extend beyond the realm of academia into everyday life. We see this phenomenon in advertising, politics, and even social media. A well-edited video with captivating visuals and an energetic host can make even the most trivial products seem revolutionary. In the political arena, a charismatic orator can rally support for policies that may not be based on sound reasoning. People are often swayed by the delivery and presentation rather than the quality of the information presented, which raises important questions about critical thinking and audience discernment. Another fascinating aspect of this hypothesis is its connection to the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias where individuals with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. In environments where presentation skills are highly valued, those who manage to present nonsensical ideas persuasively may gain undue credibility. This results in a feedback loop where audiences continue to reward style over substance, leading to a further decline in critical evaluation of information. To illustrate this point, think about popular self-help books or motivational speakers. Often they use vague language, peppered with buzzwords that sound impressive. Phrases like achieve your true potential or manifest your desires resonate with listeners, even if the underlying concepts are poorly defined. Many individuals can recount inspiring moments from such talks, yet when it comes to implementing the strategies mentioned, they often find them lacking in practical application. The allure of a well-presented idea can overshadow a lack of substantive backing. So what can we learn from the Dr. Fox hypothesis? Firstly, it encourages us to be more discerning consumers of information. When confronted with a presentation, whether in an academic setting or a business environment, it's essential to assess the content critically. Consider whether the speaker is truly conveying meaningful ideas or merely packaging empty rhetoric in a dazzling format. Secondly, it reminds us of the importance of honing our communication skills. As we navigate a landscape filled with competing messages, the ability to express ideas clearly and engagingly can be a powerful tool. However, it is crucial to ensure that the substance of our claims holds up to scrutiny. Balancing style with integrity creates a foundation for meaningful exchanges and trustworthy communication. Ultimately, the Dr. Fox hypothesis serves as a thought-provoking lens through which to view the world of communication. It shines a light on our tendency to confuse style with substance, urging us to foster a culture that values critical thinking and meaningful dialogue. As we continue to engage with ideas, let us strive to elevate both our presentation skills and the quality of the content we consume and share. This balance may lead to a more informed and discerning society, one that values genuine insight over mere illusion. The Eleatic Dilemma is a fascinating philosophical discourse originating from ancient Greece, specifically from the school of thought established by the philosopher Parmenides. At the heart of the Eleatic Dilemma is a profound inquiry into the nature of existence and the fundamental question of whether reality is singular or plural. To unpack this dilemma, we must first consider the ideas of Parmenides, who proposed the notion of a single, unchanging reality. According to Parmenides, the very concept of change is an illusion, and what truly exists is eternal and uniform. He claimed that what is must be understood as a single entity, devoid of the multiplicity that we perceive in the world around us. This idea challenges us to think deeply about our daily experiences, where we encounter countless objects, events, and phenomena. Are these distinct entities, Or are they merely manifestations of the one true reality? This leads us to the contrast provided by another school of thought, primarily represented by Heraclitus, who argued for the fundamental importance of change and plurality. Heraclitus famously stated that one cannot step into the same river twice, emphasizing that everything is in a constant state of flux. From this perspective, reality is not a static being but a dynamic process characterized by diversity and transformation. The debate between these two views raises important questions about perception and understanding. If we entertain Parmenides' viewpoint, we might reflect on the nature of our thoughts and how they interact with the concept of existence. For instance, consider the notion of a tree. We can observe its branches swaying in the wind, feel the rough texture of its bark, and see its leaves changing colors throughout the seasons. This sensory experience suggests that the tree is a unique, individual entity, different from any other tree. However, if we apply Parmenidean logic, we might question whether these observations distract us from the underlying reality that connects all things. Perhaps, in a metaphysical sense, the essence of the tree is not in its changes, but in its singularity. Conversely, examining the ideas of Heraclitus allows us to appreciate the complexity of existence. Every day we encounter a multitude of experiences that shape our understanding of the world. Our relationships, emotions, and interactions offer rich evidence of the plurality of existence. Imagine the vibrant atmosphere of a bustling marketplace with people from all walks of life. Each person has their own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives, creating a tapestry of existence that is uniquely diverse. In this light, the world is not just one thing or another, but an intricate web of interconnected experiences. The Eleatic dilemma encourages us to grapple with these contrasting viewpoints, sparking curiosity about the nature of reality. Is the world around us a collection of individual entities, or is there an underlying unity that binds everything together? Each perspective provides valuable insights into our understanding of existence. To illustrate the impact of this dilemma on our lives, consider the relationship between art and reality. An artist may create a painting that seeks to capture the essence of a landscape. Some viewers may feel that the artwork resonates with a deeper truth about nature, aligning more with Parmenides' idea of a singular unity. Others may perceive the same painting as an expression of the artist's unique perspective, highlighting the beauty of individual experience, in line with Heraclitus' emphasis on plurality and change. In our quest to understand existence, we also encounter the concept of relativity. Physical principles tell us that the same object can appear differently depending on our vantage point or the angle of light. This idea reinforces the argument for multiplicity in reality, as our perspective plays a crucial role in shaping our experiences. Ultimately, the Eleatic dilemma invites us to embrace the complexity of existence. In pondering whether reality is a singular essence or a multitude of experiences, we learn to appreciate both the unity and diversity that life has to offer. The dance between these two perspectives enriches our understanding, allowing us to explore deeper existential questions without arriving at a definitive answer. As we navigate the intricate landscape of reality, the Eleatic dilemma serves as a reminder of the beauty inherent in questioning. It challenges us to reflect on the nature of our own existence, cultivating an appreciation for the diverse experiences that define our lives. Whether we lean toward a unified perception of reality or embrace the richness of multiplicity, the discussion remains alive, evolving with each new thought and perspective we encounter along our journey. The future contingence paradox is a fascinating topic in the realm of philosophy, particularly in the discussion of how we understand time and truth. At its core, this paradox raises intriguing questions about the truth value of statements concerning future events that are not yet realized. The paradox becomes especially relevant when we consider how we articulate our knowledge and beliefs about what is to come. Imagine you are at a local park, enjoying a sunny afternoon, and you casually observe a friend who has a coin in their hand. Your friend declares they will flip the coin, and it will land heads. At this moment, we can ask whether the statement, "the coin will land heads," is true or false. However, according to the principles of the future contingence paradox, this question is not so straightforward. In the classical understanding of truth, a statement is either true or false, and it cannot be both. Thus, one might think that either your friend's prediction is destined to be true or it isn't. However, the interesting twist comes when we think about the future. If the coin has not yet been flipped, does that mean the statement has no truth value? Can we assert that it will be true or false if the event is in the future and has not yet occurred? Some philosophers, like Aristotle, believed that statements about the future cannot be definitively categorized as true or false until the events they refer to actually happen. This brings us to the concept of truth-value gaps, where certain propositions might not have a clear truth value. In the case of our friend's coin flip, before the coin is actually flipped, we cannot definitely say that it will land heads, nor can we assert it will land tails. To illustrate further, consider weather predictions. A meteorologist might confidently state that it will rain tomorrow. This statement carries an expectation based on current data. However, until the day unfolds, there exists a realm of uncertainty. As such, the truth of the meteorologist's statement isn't fully determined until the moment arrives. Similarly, in the case of our coin flip, until the coin actually lands, the truth remains undetermined. This idea of future propositions lacking defined truth values poses a challenge to the principle of bivalence, which asserts that every proposition must be either true or false. The future contingence paradox compels us to ponder deeper metaphysical ideas regarding determinism and free will. Are future events predetermined, or do they depend on the choices we make? If they are predetermined, then could it be said that a future statement is already true or false before it occurs? If they are not predetermined, then the future remains open and filled with possibilities. Consider a game of chess. Before you make your move, multiple potential outcomes exist. Each choice could lead to a different situation on the board. Just as in chess, when we think about future events, each decision, each potential outcome, carries with it the weight of uncertainty. Thinking of a tree with branches, where every branch represents a different possibility, captures the essence of how future events can manifest in various ways, each leading to different outcomes. Furthermore, we must entertain the perspective of a so-called four-dimensional view of time. In this view, past, present, and future are all equally real. Everything in time exists simultaneously, and thus the truth of future events is always considered. Here, statements about the future can be said to hold a truth value at the same time as statements about the past and present. This perspective shifts our understanding of how we view time and the truths we attach to it. The implications of the future contingence paradox extend beyond philosophy and into areas like logic and linguistics. It invites discussions on the language we use to express future events and how that language shapes our thoughts. The way we frame predictions or expectations can influence our understanding of possibility and certainty. As we delve deeper into the paradox, we find ourselves asking profound questions. How do our beliefs about the future shape our decisions in the present? Are we constrained by a predetermined future, or do we possess the agency to change outcomes? The mystery of future contingence invites both philosophical inquiry and practical considerations, challenging us to explore the unknown. Ultimately, the future contingence paradox serves as a captivating reminder of the complexities of time, knowledge, and decision-making. It encourages us to reflect on the nature of truth, urging us to consider how our understanding of future events informs our behavior and interactions in the present. This reflection on the undetermined nature of what lies ahead adds a layer of richness to our experience of life, encouraging us to embrace uncertainty, possibility, and the beautiful unpredictability that future events hold. Inductive reasoning is a fascinating topic within philosophy that raises intriguing questions about how we acquire knowledge and the reliability of that process. It involves making generalizations based on specific observations. For instance, if you see the sun rise in the east every morning, you might conclude that the sun will rise in the east tomorrow as well. This seems logical and practical. We rely on it in our daily lives and scientific endeavors. However, the problem of induction questions the validity of these generalizations. The philosopher David Hume is often credited with bringing this issue to light. He pointed out that no matter how many times we observe a phenomenon, we can never be absolutely certain that it will occur again in the same way. For example, just because you have always seen swans as white does not logically guarantee that the next swan you see will also be white. Hume argued that such generalizations are not grounded in reason but are merely habits of thought. This leads to an important distinction between deductive and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning provides certain conclusions given certain premises. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. For instance, all humans are mortal, and Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. This kind of reasoning is cut and dry, leaving little room for doubt. In contrast, Inductive reasoning offers probable conclusions rather than absolute certainties. It opens the door to new information and surprises, as we can find exceptions to our generalizations. Many philosophers have grappled with this issue, and it brings about a central question: can we ever truly have knowledge through induction? While we may utilize inductive reasoning to make sense of the world, its reliability can be elusive. Consider the example of scientists observing that heavier objects fall faster in a vacuum. This conclusion might seem sound based on repeated experiments, yet it could be challenged by unforeseen factors or conditions that have yet to be tested. Moreover, induction is often seen not just as a logical method, but as an essential part of academic inquiry and everyday problem solving. For instance, if a farmer plants seeds and observes their growth over several seasons, he may conclude which types thrive best in his soil. He bases his future planting decisions on these observations, demonstrating the practical utility of induction despite its philosophical uncertainties. Yet, the question remains: if inductive reasoning cannot provide absolute knowledge, how do we navigate our lives? This dilemma has prompted further exploration into the nature of belief and evidence. We rely on patterns and regularities to guide our actions, forming expectations based on past experiences. This approach can lead to significant advancements, such as scientific breakthroughs, even if it does not guarantee certainty. Interestingly, some philosophers have dealt with this issue by attempting to find a common ground between induction and the search for knowledge. For example, Karl Popper argued against the traditional view of induction altogether by suggesting that scientific theory should be falsifiable rather than verifiable. In essence, rather than seeking to confirm our theories through repeated observations, we should focus on disproving them, which leads to a stronger understanding of reality. This brings us to the idea of prediction and expectation. We live in a world driven by patterns, where even the most complex phenomena can be broken down into observable trends. Consider meteorology. Weather predictions rely heavily on inductive reasoning. Meteorologists analyze past weather patterns to forecast future events. While they use vast amounts of data to improve their predictions, they must also accept that their models can sometimes fail, as unexpected changes in variables arise. Thus, while the problem of induction introduces an element of skepticism about our ability to gain knowledge, it also challenges us to think critically about our assumptions. It encourages continual observation and openness to new evidence, creating a dynamic relationship between knowledge and inquiry. In practical terms, this means that while we may make educated guesses based on past experiences, we should also remain vigilant and adaptable. Recognizing the limitations of our inferences invites us to revise our beliefs when confronted with new information, fostering a growth mindset. The problem of induction ultimately highlights a fundamental aspect of human cognition. It reminds us that while we are inherently pattern-seeking beings, we must also appreciate the complexity and unpredictability of the world around us. This philosophical inquiry does not just reside in abstract thought, but has real-world implications that impact our understanding, learning, and decision-making processes. Ultimately, embracing the problem of induction opens up a world of rich discussion about knowledge, certainty, and the nature of learning. We can appreciate the beauty of inductive reasoning even amid its uncertainties, recognizing it not as a flaw but as a reflection of our ongoing journey toward deeper understanding and discovery. As we engage with this philosophical problem, we embrace the complexities of our experiences, leading us to a more nuanced view of knowledge and reality. Imagine a world where teleportation is a routine method of travel. You step into a device that scans your entire body, maps out your physical and mental state down to the tiniest details, and then disassembles you atom by atom. Moments later, you reappear at your destination, reconstructed perfectly. But here lies a fascinating question. Are you still the same person after the procedure? To explore this idea, let's consider what being the same person really means. Is it about your physical body, your memories, your consciousness, or something else entirely? These are deep philosophical questions that have intrigued thinkers for centuries. One perspective focuses on your physical body. When you are teleported, does your original body cease to exist, replaced completely by a new one? If a person is disassembled in one location and reassembled in another, does the destruction of the first body mean that person has ceased to exist? This line of thinking leads us to ponder the nature of identity itself. Another perspective delves into memory and consciousness. Imagine you've just been teleported. All your memories, thoughts, and experiences should follow you to your new location, and everything feels the same. You remember your first bicycle ride, or the taste of your favorite food. If these memories remain intact, can we argue that the essence of who you are has also remained unchanged? Some philosophers, like John Locke, have argued that identity is tied to memory. According to this view, if the person who arrives at the new location retains all memories and consciousness of their previous self, they are indeed the same person. However, another philosopher, Derek Parfit, introduces a notion of psychological continuity, suggesting that it's not merely the possession of memories, but the ongoing connection between them that contributes to identity. Now, think about the implications of what happens if something goes wrong during teleportation. What if the device malfunctions and alters some of your memories, or even erases some altogether? Would that change your identity? Similarly, if your teleported body experiences a different set of memories or emotions upon arrival, does that make you a different person? To grasp this further, let's use a thought experiment. Imagine two identical twins, Alice and Bob. Alice decides to use a teleportation device, while Bob remains in the original location. Alice successfully teleports, experiencing the procedure with no changes to her memories or thoughts. Bob, however, continues to live his life in the original world. After a day, Alice and Bob meet again. Both have their unique experiences, but are they still the same in essence? Are they different people because they have lived through events unique to them since the teleportation? Furthermore, consider the surrounding implications of personal identity in a society that embraces teleportation. Would people accept the notion of teleportation as a valid method of travel, or would there always be a nagging doubt that they might not return as themselves? This might lead to a broader existential crisis, where individuals begin to question their existence at a fundamental level every time they step into a teleportation device. In science fiction, we often encounter scenarios that play with the concept of identity. Take, for instance, a character who uses teleportation frequently. As they travel from one location to another, they begin to experience shifts in their personality, or become increasingly detached from their past self. Eventually, they may struggle to connect with their sense of identity. Are they merely a collection of memories, or is there something deeper that defines who they are? The concept of identity in the face of technology raises many ethical and philosophical questions. Imagine a society where teleportation is commonplace, and people begin to view their identity as fluid. Would individuals lose a sense of self, or would they adapt to new norms of understanding identity? Moreover, let's not forget the potential of teleportation to create a kind of immortality. If you can be teleported repeatedly without meaningful changes, could one argue that your essence lives on indefinitely? Conversely, if every teleport causes subtle shifts in identity, you may face the unsettling reality that no two yous are the same, and each journey alters the very fabric of who you are. In essence, the teletransportation paradox offers a unique lens through which to contemplate our understanding of self. Whether through memory, consciousness, or physicality, the questions raised invite us to explore the essence of our identity in an increasingly technological world. Thus, as we ponder this paradox, we not only question the implications of teleportation, but also reflect on the very nature of existence itself. What truly defines who we are? Imagine walking down a familiar street, enjoying the rhythm of your day, when suddenly, out of the corner of your eye, you spot someone who looks exactly like you. At first, it might be amusing, maybe even a little unsettling. But then it raises a plethora of questions. Why does this happen? What does it mean for our identities, our relationships, and ultimately, our understanding of ourselves? The concept of the doppelganger stirs imagination throughout literature and folklore. In many cultures, a doppelganger represents more than just an identical twin. It can symbolize a dark aspect of oneself, an alternate path, or even an echo of our hidden fears. This leads us to confront various moral and existential issues tied to identity. One of the most intriguing moral quandaries is the question of authenticity. If you meet your doppelganger, do you see them as yourself or as someone else? Imagine two people who share the same face, the same voice, and the same mannerisms. However, they might have had entirely different life experiences and choices. At this moment, you begin to explore the essence of individual identity. What truly makes you who you are? Is it your memories, your experiences, your choices, or perhaps a combination of all these elements? Would you treat your doppelganger as a reflection of yourself, or as a different entity deserving respect and consideration. Then, there's the existential crisis brewing within this scenario. Encountering your double can provoke thoughts about fate and free will. It compels us to question whether we are merely products of our circumstances or if our choices really shape our destinies. If your doppelganger exists, what does that say about alternate versions of our lives? It is tempting to ponder, what if I had chosen differently? What if I lived in a different place or pursued a different career? This scenario allows us to explore paths unchosen while reinforcing the unique journey we each embark upon. What happens next is equally fascinating. The moment you engage with this identical stranger, ethical dilemmas arise. Should you cooperate with them, or is there a mistrust stemming from the eeriness of the situation? One might feel compelled to reflect on the nature of competition. If your lives are parallel, does cooperation or rivalry take precedence? You might think, is there space for two individuals who mirror each other's existence? Often, such an encounter forces us to confront notions of empathy and connection. Can we cultivate a bond with someone who represents an alternative version of our very self? This reflects broader societal issues. Familiar relationships can become strained when facing someone who represents an aspect of us that perhaps we dislike or envy. There is a universal challenge in understanding others, especially when they mirror our shortcomings or unfulfilled desires. Additionally, think about the fear that could accompany such a meeting. There is the looming threat that your doppelganger may lead to feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. After all, if they are living a life similar to yours but making different choices, you may start to question your path. Do you see your doppelganger as a potential rival, threatening your place in the world, or as a kindred spirit embarking on an equally unique journey? This duality can evoke strong emotions, giving rise to both self-assessment and envy. Lastly, the challenge of unearthing our true selves can become tangled up with the doppelganger phenomenon. People often wear masks, portraying versions of themselves that may not align with their inner truths. Encountering an identical counterpart could spark an internal dialogue about the facades we create and why we feel the need to hide our authentic selves. Would meeting your counterpart encourage you to shed your own mask and embrace vulnerability, or would it compel you to reinforce your defenses? In summary, the doppelganger dilemma dives into the heart of moral and existential issues. It brings forth questions about authenticity, identity, free will, and the interplay of competition and cooperation. It challenges us to reassess our connections with others, and ultimately urges us to reflect on our own lives. The encounter with an identical double invites contemplation on the complex tapestry that makes up our individuality, and reminds us that we are all unique, even in a world where similarities abound. This thought-provoking notion encourages us to embrace our journeys with a clearer understanding of ourselves and those who walk alongside us. Imagine a fascinating concept known as the bootstrap paradox, where the boundaries of time and causality blur in the most intriguing way. Picture this. You encounter a time traveler who brings back a finely crafted piece of music. This beautiful symphony captivates everyone who hears it, including a famous composer. Inspired by the melody, this composer creates their own version of that symphony, breathing life into a piece that resonates with people centuries later. However, there's a twist. The original piece of music, which prompted the composer's creation, was actually brought back in time from the future by none other than the composer themselves. In this scenario, the music seems to exist without an origin. It travels back in time, leading to its own creation. You're likely asking yourself how something can exist, and yet have no definite origin. The paradox suggests that the music was never truly created by someone. It simply exists in an endless loop, a cycle where it was always destined to exist in that particular time frame without a clear point of inception. Let's extend this thought experiment further. Imagine a book written by a famous author someone discovered in a secret library hidden deep in the mountains. They take it home, read it, and become inspired to write their own incredible story. Years later, this author publishes their novel, and, due to its immense success, the book then finds its way back in time, landing in that same hidden library for the first time. So, was the book truly written by the author? Or did it emerge from nowhere, floating through time, effectively an artifact of time travel? This paradox stretches the imagination and challenges our understanding of linear time. It flirts with the idea that events might not be exclusive to one timeline, but might overlap in ways we can't easily grasp. It opens up questions about destiny and free will. Are we the architects of our realities, or are we merely following a path paved by previous actions from ourselves or perhaps others yet to come? Neuroscience and quantum physics have shown us that time isn't as straightforward as it seems. In the vast universe, the conventional view of past, present, and future as distinct moments might just be a comforting illusion. The bootstrap paradox is a thought-provoking reflection on this possibility, enticing both scientists and philosophers to examine the implications of time travel and causality more deeply. Imagine telling someone a profound piece of advice that you swear you learned from them in the future rather than the past. It becomes a swirl of thoughts, where each conversation and idea flits back and forth through time, rendering the source ambiguous. People often find themselves in positions where they influence their own past in unexpected ways, suggesting that events we see as random or separate may actually be tightly woven into a tapestry created by time itself. Some scientists posit that if time travel ever became possible, these kinds of paradoxes would wildly transform the fabric of space-time. For instance, an engineer might innovate technology that enables time travel, but to create that technology, they need to revert to sources from the future. Suddenly, the engineer would only exist because of the technologies brought back through time. It poses tantalizing questions about responsibility and the consequences of our actions. In essence, the bootstrap paradox can be seen as a captivating puzzle. It melds our understanding of science fiction with philosophical quandaries. It encourages creative thought about how we perceive our existence and the choices we make. The paradox exemplifies complexity and invites a deeper dive into the nature of time, causality, and the universe at large. To navigate this challenge gracefully, one might consider the cycles of influence in our lives, where our actions lead to motivations, and motivations lead back to influence. Just as a river shapes the land it flows through, time may carve new paths from events created by itself, folding onto their own past. While science fiction often takes the lead, the bootstrap paradox serves as a bridge, blending fiction with a tantalizing realm for scientific inquiry. So next time you encounter history, literature, or music, think about how they could echo through time, existing in various forms and creating new realities. The bootstrap paradox remains a captivating theme that challenges how we see our world, weaving together threads of our past, present, and potential futures into one extraordinary narrative. It illustrates that sometimes the most profound truths about existence are those that refuse to conform to our traditional understanding of cause and effect, leading us to wonder where we end and time begins. David Hume, an 18th century Scottish philosopher, is often credited with a significant contribution to our understanding of the relationship between facts and morals. One of his key ideas, which has come to be known as Hume's guillotine, presents a compelling question: can we derive moral imperatives from factual statements? This topic invites us to explore the intersection of ethics and empiricism, giving us a rich landscape to consider the foundations of our moral beliefs. To understand Hume's guillotine, it's helpful to begin with a basic distinction he established between is and ought. In simpler terms, is refers to descriptive statements about the world, what exists or what happens, while ought pertains to prescriptive statements, what we should do or how we should behave. Hume argued that you cannot logically derive an ought from an is. This means that just because something is a certain way does not imply that it should be that way. For example, consider the statement, "the sky is blue." This is a factual observation that describes the world around us. However, it does not lead to a moral conclusion that we ought to paint everything blue, or that blue is the best color to choose. Such a leap from descriptive facts to prescriptive values lacks a logical foundation, according to Hume's reasoning. To illustrate this point further, let's take another example from the realm of natural phenomena. Suppose one observes that many animals eat plants to survive. This observation captures a factual aspect of nature. What it does not do, however, is imply that humans should also adopt a plant-eating lifestyle based solely on this fact. While some may derive ethical conclusions about vegetarianism from the facts of animal behavior, this transition involves additional principles and considerations. Hume challenged us to recognize when we are moving beyond mere observation into the territory of moral judgment. One might wonder why this distinction holds significance in our everyday lives. After all, we often draw conclusions based on our observations of the world. However, Hume's guillotine serves as a reminder to scrutinize these conclusions critically. When faced with societal issues, we must ask ourselves, Are we determining what people ought to do based strictly on empirical observations? This is particularly relevant when discussing topics such as climate change, justice, or human rights. Facts can inform our understanding of these issues, but they do not automatically dictate what is ethical or just. The implications of Hume's arguments have sparked extensive debate among philosophers. Some thinkers seek to bridge the gap between facts and moral claims through various ethical frameworks. For instance, utilitarianism, which promotes actions that maximize well-being, attempts to ground moral imperatives in factual observations about human happiness and suffering. However, critics argue that even these frameworks may encounter Hume's challenge, as they often rely on interpretations of what constitutes the greatest good, a notion that can be subjective and influenced by cultural contexts. Another approach to consider is Kantian ethics, which posits that moral imperatives can arise from rational principles rather than empirical observation. Immanuel Kant believed that there are universal moral laws that can be derived from reason itself, independent of particular facts about the world. While this perspective provides an interesting counterpoint to Hume's ideas, it does not resolve the question of how we relate factual statements to moral imperatives. Despite the complexity of these discussions, Hume's guillotine encourages us to reflect on our reasoning patterns. It calls for concerted effort to ensure that our moral beliefs are not merely knee-jerk reactions to the world around us, but are grounded in thoughtful consideration of ethical principles. It reminds us to acknowledge the limitations of observational data in guiding moral decisions. The exploration of Hume's ideas extends beyond philosophical circles. It has implications for our daily lives, especially in how we engage with contemporary ethical dilemmas. In a world increasingly driven by data and empirical evidence, we are tasked with recognizing that facts alone cannot dictate values. The interplay between what is and what ought to be requires a delicate balance of rational discourse and emotional understanding. In summary, Hume's guillotine presents an essential critique of the way we often conflate descriptive facts with prescriptive morals. It compels us to reflect on the basis of our ethical beliefs and to tread carefully when transitioning from observation to the realm of judgment. The ongoing discourse surrounding this topic not only enriches our understanding of morality, but also deepens our engagement with the world as thoughtful, ethical beings. The God paradox is a fascinating exploration of the contradictions that often arise when we think about the attributes of a deity. This philosophical puzzle delves into concepts that can be both compelling and perplexing, inviting us to consider the nature of divinity from various angles. Consider the traditional attributes associated with a deity, such as omnipotence, omniscience, and benevolence. These traits form the foundation of many religious beliefs, yet they can also lead to significant contradictions. For example, if a deity is all-powerful, can everything truly happen as it should? Can true free will exist if every action and outcome is subject to divine control? This question challenges the very essence of human agency. Furthermore, if we accept that a deity is all-knowing, this raises another interesting contradiction. An omniscient being is aware of all events, including future actions. If an individual has a predetermined path, how can we reconcile this with the notion of humans making genuine choices? The paradox arises. If our choices are foreseen and known, do we have the capacity to choose freely, or are we merely fulfilling a preordained plan? Next, consider the attribute of benevolence. Many belief systems portray their deity as fundamentally good and caring. However, the existence of suffering and evil in the world poses a serious challenge to this notion. If a benevolent deity exists, why would such suffering be allowed? The problem of evil suggests that either the deity lacks the power to stop suffering, which contradicts omnipotence, or that the deity is not wholly good, leading to further conflicts within traditional definitions of divinity. These contradictions have prompted thinkers throughout history to engage with the God paradox in meaningful ways. From ancient philosophers to modern theologians, the exploration of these attributes can deepen our understanding of spirituality. For instance, some propose the idea of a deity that is not entirely controlling, allowing for the existence of free will, while still possessing a broader perspective of existence. This perspective reframes traditional views, suggesting that despite suffering, there may exist a larger plan that humans are not privy to. In addition to the philosophical implications, the God paradox extends into the realm of human experience. For many, grappling with these contradictions can lead to deeper introspection and a more nuanced relationship with the idea of the divine. Questions arise about how we understand morality, justice, and purpose when viewed through the lens of a complex deity. These inquiries not only enrich personal belief systems, but also encourage dialogue among diverse religious and philosophical perspectives. Reflecting on these contradictions can take various forms. Artistic expressions, such as literature and visual art, often seek to capture the essence of this paradox. Poets, for instance, may write sonnets that evoke the struggle between faith and doubt, while painters might depict scenes that symbolize the tension between light and darkness. This dynamic interplay between various interpretations of divinity keeps the conversation lively and open-ended. As we explore the God paradox further, it is essential to recognize the cultural contexts that shape how a deity is conceived. Different religions offer diverse narratives that address the attributes of the divine uniquely. In some traditions, the deity is depicted as engaging deeply with humanity, while in others, the divine is seen as more detached. This range of portrayals highlights the multitude of perspectives that can arise from similar experiential struggles with the nature of existence. Consider also the impact of modernity on these ancient discussions. With advancements in science and philosophy, traditional understandings of divinity have been challenged and reinterpreted. For instance, the rise of existentialism brings forth questions about inherent meaning and the pursuit of purpose without explicit divine guidance. This philosophical movement encourages individuals to seek their own truths, which can lead to a more personalized and perhaps fragmented understanding of the divine. Moreover, the God paradox invites consideration of moral responsibility. If a deity possesses all attributes typically ascribed to it, how does that affect human accountability? People often grapple with the implications of divine judgment in light of their choices. The interplay between divine oversight and human action can lead to a deeper understanding of justice and fairness, motivating many to think more critically about their beliefs and the consequences of their actions. In summary, the God paradox thrives on the complexity of defining a deity with seemingly contradictory attributes. It serves as a doorway to profound questions about free will, morality, and the nature of existence. By considering these contradictions, we engage in a dialogue that transcends boundaries, encouraging a richer understanding of ourselves, our relationships with others, and the divine. Each inquiry into this paradox can inspire a more nuanced perspective, leading to personal growth and further inquiry. The exploration of these contradictions is not only an intellectual exercise, but also a journey into the heart of what it means to seek understanding in a world filled with ambiguity and wonder. The Raven paradox presents a fascinating intersection of philosophy and logic, particularly in the realm of scientific reasoning. It all begins with a simple statement: all ravens are black. This assertion might initially seem straightforward, but the implications and interpretations can lead to some intriguing discussions. Imagine a scenario where you are observing a raven in the wild. Its feathers gleam a deep, iridescent black under the sunlight, a striking representation of what we often picture when we think of a raven. However, the Raven paradox draws our attention to the broader implications of this statement, inviting us to consider how we might test its validity. To illustrate this, consider an example. If you were to see a black raven, it wouldn't provide evidence to support the claim that all ravens are black. Instead, it's the instances we observe that could challenge or support this proposition. Let's expand on this idea. If you were to come across a white raven, this would certainly contradict our initial statement, suggesting that the assertion all ravens are black is indeed flawed. Now, let's think about a twist in our reasoning. When one sees a red apple, this does not contradict the idea that all ravens are black. In fact, every time someone observes a non-black object, like a red apple, it indirectly supports the claim about ravens. This line of reasoning stems from a principle known as the principle of confirmation theory. According to this principle, observing instances that belong to the same category but do not meet the core assertion allows us to confirm the statement about ravens. Here's where the paradox deepens. It challenges our intuitive understanding of evidence and confirmation. If a white raven disproves the assertion that all ravens are black, one might argue that every non-black item, be it an apple, a car, or a pair of shoes, serves as evidence supporting the statement. How can this be? How can evidence about unrelated objects help confirm or refute a statement about ravens? This brings us to a crucial understanding of how we engage with generalizations in science. The Raven paradox illustrates how empirical observation can sometimes lead to misleading conclusions. Scientists seek to observe instances to either confirm or disprove theories, and yet the Raven paradox suggests that the act of looking may yield unexpected results. As we ponder this enigmatic conundrum, consider what it tells us about the nature of knowledge and belief. The quest for truth involves more than simply gathering evidence that aligns with our beliefs. It challenges us to question the very framework of our reasoning. When we assert that all ravens are black, we are not merely stating a fact. We are engaging in a broader conversation about the nature of evidence and classification. Further complicating the matter is the idea of relevance in evidence. Observing a red apple does not seem to relate to ravens directly, and yet it plays a role in the broader landscape of confirmation theory. This leads to a fascinating exploration of how we connect dots across disparate categories. Do we draw lines between objects based on deeper shared characteristics, or are we merely categorizing based on superficial attributes? There's an important takeaway here. The Raven paradox prompts us to refine our understanding of empirical evidence and how we justify our beliefs based on what we observe. It underscores the necessity of critical thinking and encourages individuals to scrutinize their own reasoning processes. As we navigate through different domains of knowledge, we must remember the potential pitfalls of misinterpreting evidence. In summary, the Raven paradox serves as a remarkable illustration of the complexities involved in generalizations and evidence. It teaches us that while observing characteristics may seem straightforward, the implications and interpretations can lead to profound philosophical questions. Understanding these nuances not only enriches our perspective on logic and reasoning, but also enhances our approach to scientific inquiry. The encounter with this paradox allows us to appreciate the intricacies of knowledge and the importance of a rigorous stance in the pursuit of truth. The identity of indiscernibles is a philosophical principle often associated with the work of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a prominent philosopher and mathematician. This principle essentially states that if two objects cannot be distinguished from one another in every conceivable aspect, then they are, in fact, the same object. This leads us to ponder a fascinating question. Do two indistinguishable objects have separate identities? To explore this question, let us first consider an example that many of us can relate to. Two identical twin siblings. At first glance, they may appear indistinguishable, sharing the same physical traits, mannerisms, and even sometimes tastes. However, upon closer observation, we can often find unique identifiers that distinguish one twin from the other. Perhaps one has a small birthmark, or an affinity for a particular hobby that sets them apart. In this case, even though their external appearances may be nearly identical, their individual identities remain distinct. Now, let's step into the realm of philosophy and think about this concept in a broader context. Imagine a scenario involving two identical coins. Each coin is produced from the same material, stamped in the same way, and holds the same value. If they are placed side by side, one might argue that distinguishing them merely by observation is impossible at first. However, if we were to track their histories, such as where they have been or how they have been used, we would start to uncover their unique journeys. One might have been in a vending machine while the other perhaps has traveled across a foreign country. These experiences contribute to their identity, even if they resemble each other perfectly. Philosophers like Leibniz invite us to consider deeper implications. His principle serves as a challenge to our understanding of objects and their identities. What does it mean to be unique? Is it enough for two objects, or people, to have different histories to claim individuality? Or does their distinguishability hinge on some inherent characteristics? Take a moment to think about invented objects, like two identical robots designed for the same purpose. Each robot may execute the same tasks flawlessly and have similar design features. However, if one robot is connected to a specific network and the other is programmed with different AI learning algorithms, they can evolve in different ways based on their interactions with the environment. This brings us to the idea that while two objects may start indistinguishable, their experiences and environments can lead them towards distinct identities. Contrast this philosophical exploration with the realm of quantum mechanics, where particles such as electrons can behave as indistinguishable entities. In the quantum world, particles are described using mathematical models that sometimes blur the lines of identity, challenging our definitions of individuality. Yet, these particles still interact with their environment in unique ways that can lead to observable differences over time, making them distinct in their actions, even if they are fundamentally identical. As we reach further into the implications of this inquiry, we might also wonder about ideas of personal identity and consciousness. Imagine two identical clones created with the same genetic material and memories. If they were to live separate lives, developing their own experiences and perspectives, would they retain their individuality? Each life, however similar at birth, would diverge based on personal relationships, choices, and perceptions. This concept leads us to examine whether identity is static or dynamic. Is it defined at the moment of conception, or does it evolve through time and experience? The interplay of factors such as time, environment, experience, and interaction further complicate our understanding of identity. Let's consider the realm of art and creation. Two artists may create identical paintings using the same colors and techniques. Yet, if one artist is influenced by different cultural experiences or emotions while creating, the essence of the artwork might carry the subtleties of their identity, revealing the personal touch embedded within. The interpretations and emotional responses elicited from viewers will undoubtedly vary, suggesting that behind elements that appear indistinguishable lie layers of identity shaped by personal history and intent. So we circle back to the essence of identity. From objects on a shelf, to particles in the universe, to individuals navigating life, the question remains profound. Even if two things appear identical, their identities may diverge through history, interaction, and experience. The beauty of identity lies not in mere appearance, but in the rich tapestry of connections, experiences, and narratives that shape us. Thus, while two indistinguishable objects may challenge our understanding of identity, the deeper exploration reveals the complexities and nuances that exist beneath the surface, underscoring the thought that every entity holds its own story, regardless of how similar they might seem at first glance. The lottery paradox presents a fascinating challenge in the realm of probability and belief. It opens up a discussion about human intuition and rationality, inviting us to explore a seemingly contradictory scenario. Imagine you are participating in a fair lottery where each ticket has an equal chance of winning. The overall odds do not change from one ticket to the next, and the outcome is purely based on chance. Yet, many people find themselves grappling with the question of whether it is rational to believe that they will lose, even in a perfectly fair game. At first glance, it might seem irrational to think that one will lose when the chances are equal. After all, we know that one out of numerous participants will walk away as the winner, while the rest will not. But the paradox arises when you consider the number of participants. If you think about it, in a lottery with thousands of tickets, the majority of people involved will inevitably end up losing. Therefore, it seems like a natural inclination to feel that losing is more probable than winning, especially if you are among the many participants. Consider a real-life example. Suppose you buy a ticket for a local lottery with 1 million tickets sold. Your ticket has a 1 in a million chance of winning. As you calculate your odds, you may start to feel quite rational, thinking, I probably won't win this. Statistically, it is true. With so many potential winners, the chances of any individual ticket being the chosen one are minimal. It feels even more rational when you remember that the vast majority of entries will lose. In this way, it can seem entirely reasonable to hold the belief that one will lose. However, the lottery paradox also brings to light the conflict between subjective belief and objective probability. While it may be rational to recognize that losing is more likely based on the sheer volume of tickets sold, an individual ticket holder's belief about their own chances can diverge from the subjective reality. This divergence raises important questions about the nature of belief itself. You might find yourself thinking, how can I maintain a rational belief in my chances, while also acknowledging that losing is the most probable outcome? This quandary illustrates the tension between general probabilities and individual hopes or beliefs. It requires us to navigate our intuition versus the statistical nature of randomness. To further understand this paradox, let's explore what rationality entails. Rationality involves aligning our beliefs with the evidence around us. In the case of a lottery, the evidence shows that most tickets will lose. Yet, individuals can also apply personal experiences, emotions, or even superstitions to their beliefs. For instance, you might have a lucky charm, or a special method of choosing your numbers, which can lead you to believe that your ticket has a higher chance than statistics suggest. This personal element complicates the situation when we apply rationality to this game of chance. The paradox extends beyond simple lotteries into collective behavior and decision-making. People often emphasize their belief in unlikely outcomes in situations where they are invested, such as sports events or competitions. The emotional weight of participation can amplify a belief in personal victory, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them. Furthermore, the paradox also connects to broader themes in decision theory, where individuals might weigh outcomes differently based on their situation. In many cases, we choose to believe that winning is possible, even if the odds do not substantiate that belief. It reflects part of our human nature to have hope and aspire towards favorable outcomes despite logical reasoning. In sum, the lottery paradox illustrates the multifaceted nature of belief and rationality. It invites us to reflect on how we interpret chance, the role of personal experience, and the impact of sheer numbers on our perceptions. It highlights an intriguing aspect of human psychology, revealing how we balance between pragmatic reasoning and our innate desires. By examining this paradox, we not only gain insights into lotteries, but also touch upon broader concepts of belief, hope, and the complexities of rationality in our everyday lives. There is a fascinating dance between numbers and emotions, probability and belief, and pondering over these elements offers profound lessons about our decision-making processes. As we navigate through uncertainties, understanding such paradoxes can lead to deeper reflections on how we approach risk and reward in our lives. This complex interplay opens a broader discussion about the nature of belief in other areas, allowing us to explore, with curiosity, how we grapple with chances both in game or life itself. The Sleeping Beauty problem is a fascinating thought experiment that delves into the intricacies of probability and belief. It's a scenario that encourages us to think deeply about how we form beliefs based on available evidence. Imagine, if you will, that you are participating in a psychological experiment that plays with your sense of reality and perception. In this scenario, you are Sleeping Beauty, and you are going to undergo a unique procedure. You will be put to sleep on Sunday night, and when you wake up, there is a coin toss that will dictate what happens next. If the coin lands heads, you will be awakened once on Monday. If it lands tails, you will be awakened on Monday, and then again on Tuesday. After you are awakened, you will have no memory of your previous awakenings, because you will be put back to sleep each time. Now let's consider the implications. On Sunday night, before the coin toss, both outcomes, heads or tails, are equally likely, with a 50% probability each. This is where things become interesting. When you wake up, you have no information about the result of the coin toss. You could be in the head scenario or the tail scenario, yet your experience is limited to whatever moment you find yourself in. If you wake up on Monday, you might initially reason that there is a 50% chance the coin landed heads and a 50% chance it landed tails. After all, before the toss, the coins were fair, right? However, here's where the twist comes. If you are awakened again on Tuesday, your situation changes. The tails case not only allows for a Monday awakening, but it also includes a second awakening on Tuesday. Therefore, your understanding of the probability must adapt based on this new information. When considering your situation on Monday, there are a few key points to acknowledge. If you wake up and find it is Monday, you need to consider the possible scenarios that allowed for that awakening. If the coin landed heads, there would be only one awakening on Monday. If the coin landed tails, there could be an awakening on Monday and then another on Tuesday. This means that in both scenarios, the probability of being awake on Monday is influenced by the nature of the coin toss. To simplify, let's think about how often you could possibly wake up. If you are looking at the situation after the coin flip, waking on Monday only happens once for heads, but happens once for tails as well, along with another awakening possibility on Tuesday. This gives you more evidence about the likely outcomes based on your experience of being awake. The thought experiment raises an intriguing question about how we should update our beliefs given the evidence at hand. After discussing the probabilities associated with each awakening, you may want to acknowledge that upon waking on Monday, the conditional probability of the coin landing heads versus tails must be recalculated. Many argue that there are different interpretations of this scenario based on how one approaches belief updates. Some might hold the view that every time you wake up, you should attribute equal weight to both scenarios, while others might argue that each waking provides evidence that shifts the probabilities in favor of tails. In this light, when you find yourself awake on Monday, it could suggest that tails is more likely, since it accounts for multiple awakenings. This philosophically charged question also connects to deeper themes in life about knowledge, memory, and belief. How do we form our beliefs based on experiences? Each moment we awaken can be viewed as an opportunity to reassess everything we think we know. It is an illustration of how our current circumstances can challenge and reshape our understanding of probability and belief. Thus, the Sleeping Beauty problem doesn't merely serve as an abstract puzzle. It prompts us to reflect on the nature of knowledge, the updating of beliefs in light of new evidence, and the impact our experiences have on our understanding of the world around us. In our daily lives, we often encounter situations that require us to reassess our beliefs and make decisions guided by the evidence we have. How we think about those beliefs speaks volumes about our approach to uncertainty and knowledge itself. Ultimately, the Sleeping Beauty problem captures our curiosity and compels us to engage with complex ideas about chance, belief, and the human experience of waking. Through this exploration, we are invited to not only ponder the mathematical intricacies, but to also appreciate the philosophical implications that challenge how we think about the world and our place within it. Each awakening serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thought, introspection, and the ongoing pursuit of understanding in the face of uncertainty. Once upon a time in ancient Greece, a philosopher named Eubulides posed an intriguing question about heaps of sand and the nature of change. This question has since become known as the Sorites paradox. It invites us to delve into the fascinating nuances of logic and language, challenging our perceptions of when something truly becomes something else. Imagine a large heap of sand. Picture it in your mind, a mound rising high with countless grains. Now let's say that we begin to remove grains of sand from this heap, one by one. Initially, it feels perfectly clear to everyone that as we take away a single grain, the structure remains a heap. But what happens after we've taken away a few grains? This is where the paradox arises. If we continue to remove grains and identify the remaining structure, at which point would we no longer be able to call it a heap? If taking one grain away leaves us with a heap, and removing one more does too, how can we define the exact moment when it ceases to be a heap? This deceptively simple question unravels complex ideas about classification and identity. To weigh in on this, let's examine different scenarios that might provide clarity. Take a single grain of sand. By itself, it clearly does not constitute a heap. As we begin to add grains, we may not notice a significant change until we reach a certain threshold of quantity. Is it 10 grains that make a heap? Or perhaps 50? Our intuition can become blurry as we cross this undefined boundary. Now let's consider a real-world application of the Sorites paradox. Think about your closet filled with clothes. You may have a sturdy pile of garments that you identify as a collection. If you remove one shirt, it still feels like a collection. Remove another, and it remains. But at what point does it feel unreasonable to call it a collection? When it dwindles down to just a few pieces, does it transform into merely a few scattered shirts, rather than an organized collection? The power of the Sorites paradox lies in its ability to stir conversations about vague predicates, the terms we use to categorize things that don't have strictly defined boundaries. Language often thrives in this gray area, as it allows us to communicate experiences that might not fit neatly into boxes. The paradox nudges us to consider how undetermined language can lead to confusion, misunderstanding, or even philosophical debates. Another fascinating perspective comes when reflecting on various examples drawn from everyday life. For instance, think about a tall building. There are countless bricks making up its entirety. If I remove a single brick, is it still a building? Yes, it seems so. But if I remove many bricks, perhaps even a significant amount, we suddenly start questioning the integrity of the structure. The distinction between a building and a pile of bricks becomes hazy, showcasing once more the interplay of quantity and definition. Now envision a more abstract scenario, a person aged 50 who may be confidently classified as middle-aged. What happens if we shave off a single year at a time? Is 1 year enough to shift their classification from middle-aged to not? The gradualness of aging presents a similar conundrum. As each year passes, does a person remain middle-aged until an exact date, or is it an ongoing process? This question resonates deeply with ideas of identity and how we perceive transformation over time. As we ponder the Sorites paradox, we begin to recognize its implications in various domains, not only in philosophy, but also in the realms of politics, ethics, and decision-making. For instance, consider the phrase, "a little bit of sugar." If 1 grain of sugar doesn't make a dessert sweet, and neither does 2, at what point do we truly define a treat as sweet enough to be enjoyed? This ambiguity becomes essential in cooking and baking, where taste balances on a fine line, navigating the subtleties of ingredients. Moreover, the Sorites paradox does not just challenge our understanding in order to confound us. Instead, It serves as a prompt for deeper reflections on how we construct meaning through language. For example, take the concept of wealth. Society often speaks of someone as wealthy if their assets reach a certain threshold. But if an individual has just $1 less than that perceived threshold, are they still wealthy? The gradual fluctuations of wealth highlight the arbitrary nature of classifications that we often take for granted. In conclusion, while the sordid paradox might initially appear to be a whimsical inquiry in the heaps of sand, it opens the door to profound discussions about identity, classification, and the nature of change. By probing the boundaries of concepts, it reveals the intricacies of human understanding and the language we utilize. Through this exploration, we become more aware of the ambiguity that saturates our world, encouraging us to think critically about the structural underpinnings of everyday language and the categories we adopt. Each grain, each removal, may change not only the physical form, but also challenge how we perceive the essence of what constitutes a heap, a collection, or even a person. The underlying lesson inspires us to appreciate the complexities of existence that often weave together in unexpected ways. Imagine a world where a device exists that can predict every decision you make with absolute certainty. This device, known as the predictor, takes into account every variable in your life, from your upbringing and experiences to your thoughts and emotions, and can forecast your choices perfectly. However, this scenario poses a fascinating question. If the predictor can foresee our every move, do we truly have free will? Let's delve into this thought-provoking dilemma, often termed the prefect problem. At its core, it challenges our understanding of autonomy and choice. To illustrate, picture a simple scenario. You are offered two paths on your daily walk. One path leads through a serene park filled with vibrant flowers and chirping birds, while the other takes you down a busy street with honking cars and crowded sidewalks. The predictor tells you that under your current circumstances, you will inevitably choose the serene park. Now, if you were to hear this prediction, how would it affect your decision-making? You might feel constrained, as though your choice has been predetermined. Even if you attempt to defy the predictor by choosing the busy street, the act of making that conscious decision may just be another variable factored into the predictor's initial conclusion. In essence, if the predictor is always right, does your understanding of choice become an illusion? The implications of this situation extend deep into philosophical discussions about free will. Various schools of thought emerge, each attempting to grapple with the complexities of human choice in light of an infallible predictor. One perspective, known as determinism, suggests that every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events. In our example, your choice to walk the serene path is simply the culmination of a series of past decisions, personal experiences, and environmental influences. Thus, your decision, though seemingly yours, was already set into motion long before you made it. On the other hand, advocates of libertarianism argue that free will is genuine, and that human beings have the power to choose differently, regardless of predictions. They might claim that even if the predictor asserts you will choose the park, true free will exists in our ability to act against expectations. This perspective champions the idea of autonomy, emphasizing personal agency as essential to human experience. Consider a scenario where someone challenges the predictor. Suppose a person, aware of the prediction, decides to take an entirely different route, perhaps to a hidden cafe that the predictor had not foreseen. In such a case, they reclaim a semblance of control over their life. However, the intricate web of causality implies that even this act of defiance may have been part of a long chain of events leading to that very decision. Another compelling angle to explore involves the role of knowledge in decision-making. If your awareness of the predictor's foresight influences your choices, does that make your free will genuine? Imagine knowing that your best friend is going to surprise you with a birthday party. The knowledge might tempt you to act differently in the days leading up to that event, as you try to remain oblivious to the surprise. The anticipation and expectation could alter your behavior, leading you away from the original outcome. As we navigate this intricate philosophical labyrinth, we may also draw parallels to literary narratives. In classic literature, characters are often pitted against their fates. Consider the tale of Oedipus, who was fated to kill his father and marry his mother. His attempts to escape this foretold destiny inadvertently led him to fulfill it. These narratives resonate with the idea that knowing one's fate could drive a person to actions that ultimately confirm that fate. Perhaps our attempts to carve our own paths are what truly enrich our experiences, even if those paths ultimately unfold according to a predetermined script. In modern society, the conversation around prediction is more relevant than ever. With advancements in technology, we now have algorithms and artificial intelligence that can predict consumer behaviors, social interactions, and even political outcomes. These predictions can sometimes feel eerily accurate, yet they raise questions about personal agency. Are we simply data points in a larger system, or do we still possess the capacity to choose our destinies irrespective of predictions? The prefect problem ignites a profound inquiry into the essence of our humanity. It encourages us to reflect on our lives, decisions, and the myriad influences that shape us. Free will remains a compelling enigma, forcing us to confront the inevitability of our choices and the intricate dance between fate and free agency. As you ponder these themes, consider how your understanding of choice impacts your daily life. The interplay between expectation and reality may lead to a richer appreciation of the journey itself, regardless of where it leads. Embracing the complexities of decision-making can imbue our experiences with a sense of wonder, highlighting the beauty inherent in the moment-to-moment choices we navigate. Ultimately, whether we stand firmly in the camp of determinism or embrace the wild freedom of unpredictability, the prefect problem invites us to remain curious. It compels us to question, explore, and, most importantly, appreciate the freedom we wield in shaping our stories, even in a world where predictions are made with unerring accuracy. Welcome to the fascinating concept of the Hotel Infinity Paradox. Imagine a hotel that has an infinite number of rooms, all meticulously lined up in a never-ending hallway. This hotel, often called Hilbert's Hotel, offers intriguing insights into the nature of infinity, challenging our understanding of numbers, space, and possibility. At first glance, you might think that an infinite hotel would be fully booked, leaving no room for new guests. But here at the Hotel Infinity Paradox, this is where the story truly begins to get interesting. Even if every single room is occupied, there is always a way to accommodate additional guests, no matter how many there are. Let's say every room in the hotel is filled to capacity, from room number 1 all the way to room number 1000. If a new guest arrives at the front desk seeking a room, the hotel manager simply asks every current guest to move from their room to the one directly next door. This means that the guest in room 1 moves to room 2, the guest in room 2 moves to room 3, and so forth. In this way, room number 1 becomes free for the newcomer. Fascinating, isn't it? Even when it seems impossible, there's always a solution in the realm of infinity. Now, consider a situation where an infinite number of new guests arrives at the hotel, perhaps a busload of travelers, each seeking a room. You might assume that this would overwhelm the already full hotel, but not at the Hotel Infinity Paradox. The manager uses this clever strategy. Each current guest is assigned a new room based on a special formula. The guest in room 1 moves to room 2, the guest in room 2 moves to room 4, and every guest moves to a room that is double their current number. This clears out all the odd-numbered rooms, thus creating an infinite number of new rooms for the arriving guests. This process showcases the extraordinary ability of infinity to accommodate the seemingly impossible. Now, imagine a slightly different scenario. What if a visiting conference of all the prime numbers decided to book rooms at our hotel? The prime numbers include 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and so forth, ad infinitum. You might think this would create a logistical nightmare, but once again, the hotel manages it effortlessly. The manager asks every current guest to move to the room number that corresponds to their position. The guest in room 1 stays put, the guest in room 2 moves to room 3, the guest in room 3 moves to room 4, and this continues infinitely. This systematic approach creates countless new rooms, exactly matching the infinite arrival of the prime number guests. The Hotel Infinity Paradox does not only highlight the astounding properties of infinity, it also leads to fascinating discussions about set theory and the sizes of infinity. Consider two sizes of infinity: the countable infinity represented by the hotel's rooms, and the uncountable infinity represented by the points on a line segment. You might think the points along a line are more than just rooms. However, through Cantor's diagonal argument, we learn that there are infinitely more points in the line than there are rooms in the hotel. But let's step back for a moment and marvel at the notion of infinity itself. Infinity isn't just a number. It's a concept that can shift everything we thought we knew about size and quantity. If a hotel can hold infinite guests, each room representing a unique integer, then we begin to understand how infinity can stretch our imagination and help us frame the idea of limitless possibility in various aspects of life. The implications go beyond math and hotels. They extend to discussions of universes, time, and even the human experience itself. Just as the hotel infinity paradox accommodates infinite guests, our lives are often filled with endless opportunities and paths to explore. From every choice we make to every dream we pursue, there is a vast expanse of potential waiting for us, just as each room in our hotel awaits an occupant. In conclusion, the hotel infinity paradox not only serves as a whimsical illustration of the infinite, but also challenges us to think creatively about the world around us. It allows us to explore concepts of accommodation, movement, and the interplay of different sizes of infinity. So next time you think about the limits of space or the potential for endlessness, remember the enchanting hotel infinity. There's always room for more, whether it's guests in a hotel or opportunities in our lives. Simpson's paradox is a fascinating phenomenon in statistics that occurs when a trend that is present in several different groups of data disappears or reverses when the groups are combined. This paradox reveals how careful we must be when interpreting data and the importance of context in statistics. To understand Simpson's paradox, let's first consider an example involving a university admission process. Imagine a university that has two departments, the engineering department and the humanities department. Each department has a specific number of applicants, and each has its admission rate. Suppose in the engineering department, 100 male applicants apply and 80 are admitted. This results in an admission rate of 80%. In contrast, in the humanities department, 100 female applicants apply and 90 are admitted, giving an admission rate of 90%. If we just look at these two departments separately, it seems that the humanities department is more favorable towards female applicants, while the engineering department is more favorable towards male applicants. However, when we combine the data, interesting things can happen. Imagine that the engineering department has significantly more applicants than the humanities department. If there are 500 male applicants and only 50 female applicants in total across both departments, this changes the overall picture dramatically. The higher number of male applicants in engineering may skew the overall admission statistics, making it appear that the university is biased against female applicants overall, even though within each department, women were admitted at a higher rate in one context and men in another. This paradox highlights how misleading aggregated data can be. When we pool together data from these distinct groups without considering the differences in their characteristics or proportions, we might end up with a conclusion quite different from what the disaggregated data suggested. This is a crucial reminder of how important it is to analyze data within its proper context. Another classic example involves a medical treatment study. Researchers may look at two different treatments for a disease and find that treatment A is more effective for men, while treatment B is more effective for women. Individually, each gender prefers its respective treatment based on their group results. However, if all data is combined, the overall success rate may show treatment B as being more effective in total. It turns out that more men than women were taking treatment A, which inflates its success rate overall, making it seem like it was less effective than treatment B. Simpson's paradox serves as a cautionary tale, indicating that conclusions drawn from aggregated data can be fundamentally different from those drawn from individual subsets. The paradox urges researchers, data analysts, and anyone working with groups of data to carefully consider how they segment their data and maintain awareness of how group sizes and proportions interact with outcomes. It's a reminder that statistics can be counterintuitive and that we should not leap to conclusions without a thorough analysis. The true story often lies within the details and the nuances of data, waiting to be uncovered through careful investigation. In various fields, from social sciences to health sciences, Simpson's paradox becomes a critical concept, illustrating the complexity of data interpretation. It encourages critical thinking and a deeper questioning of results that seem straightforward at first glance. By recognizing the limitations of pooled data and the insights that can be derived from subgroup analysis, we develop a more nuanced understanding of trends and patterns. For anyone seeking to navigate through the vast world of data, understanding Simpson's paradox is not just an academic requirement. It is a vital skill. Knowing that the same data can tell different stories depending on how it is grouped encourages ongoing inquiry and comprehensive analysis. It teaches us to dig deeper and seek clarity amid confusion, fostering a mindset that values precision and context in the quest for understanding. Context is king in data analysis, and Simpson's paradox beautifully illustrates this principle. By keeping this paradox in mind, we cultivate a healthier skepticism towards data, enhancing our interpretations and conclusions while appreciating the intricate beauty of statistics. This awareness ultimately enriches our comprehension of the world around us, proving that what we see is not always what we get. Embracing the lessons of Simpson's paradox equips us with the tools to critically analyze information, making us more informed consumers of data. So whether we're studying admission statistics, understanding treatment efficacy, or exploring any dataset, always remember the importance of subgroup analysis and the stories that lie within. It is a journey that leads to profound insights, unveiling the layers that might otherwise remain obscured. In a world filled with data, being able to discern the narratives within is a powerful tool, one that allows us to truly grasp the complexities of our observations and the phenomena we wish to understand. The dichotomy paradox is a fascinating concept that challenges our understanding of motion, space, and infinity. Imagine you are traveling from one point to another, say from point A to point B. The distance between these 2 points is finite, meaning that it can be measured, let's say it's 100 meters. At first glance, it seems simple enough. You just move from A to B without any particular complications. However, when we dive deeper into the mechanics of this motion, things become intriguing. Before you can reach point B, you must first travel halfway to it. So if A is at 0 meters and B is at 100 meters, you would first need to cover a distance of 50 meters, landing you at the halfway point. But here's where the dichotomy paradox kicks in. To get to the halfway point, you must first travel half of that distance as well, which is 25 meters. To reach 25 meters, you again need to travel half of that distance, which is 12.5 meters. This process continues indefinitely. Let's break this down further. If we continue this pattern, every time you cover half the remaining distance to point B, you're left with another half distance to cover. The sequence of distances you travel looks like this: 50 meters, 25 meters, 12.5 meters, 6.25 meters, and so forth. You can see that with each step, the distances get smaller and smaller, but they never reach zero. Instead, no matter how many times you divide by 2, there's always another fraction left to cover. Now, this leads to an interesting observation. If you were to keep halving the distance, you could theoretically travel an infinite number of points along your journey to point B without ever truly reaching it. If you visualize this, you can imagine countless checkpoints between A and B that you must pass through. The paradox arises from the concept that you have to complete an infinite number of tasks, traveling through these points, before you can achieve your journey's goal. This paradox not only plays with our intuition about movement, but also raises questions about infinity. The idea of infinity is challenging to grasp because it defies our everyday experiences. In mathematics, infinity is not a number, but rather a concept that signifies an unbounded quantity. When you think about completing tasks, you might expect there to be an endpoint, a conclusion. However, when dealing with infinity, it's clear that the tasks might never fully resolve. Now, let's relate this to a different sphere. Let's think about time. Taking the journey between A and B also implies that we're considering time as a factor. If we take the first half of the distance, it takes a certain amount of time. The second half takes additional time. But if we apply the same theory, we would find that we would be taking an infinite amount of time to reach point B, even though you are continually moving forward. This introduces us to the philosophical discussions surrounding continuity. Can you ever really complete an infinite series of tasks, no matter how small those tasks may be? Many mathematicians and philosophers have contemplated these kinds of paradoxes, and they have introduced concepts such as limits and convergence. In calculus, there's a notion that allows us to understand how we can treat an infinite series as a finite one when calculated correctly. For instance, the series of distances you travel, 50 plus 25 plus 12.5 plus 6.25 and so forth, actually converges to the total distance of 100 meters. So even though you are conceptually moving through an infinite number of points, the total motion is still finite. This leads us to a deeper understanding of motion through the lens of mathematics and philosophy. The dichotomy paradox encourages us to reflect on how we perceive space and time. Although we can describe a path, the deeper question remains whether we can truly grasp what it means to cover distance when faced with an infinite number of points along that route. The implications of this kind of thinking extend into various fields, such as physics, where theories of motion, relativity, and quantum mechanics may draw upon similar principles. researchers still explore the enigmatic relationships between motion, time, and infinity as we continue to uncover the mysteries of the universe. As you ponder these complex ideas, think about how they interconnect with your own experiences. Every journey you undertake involves moments of pause and reflection, even in the midst of movement. The dichotomy paradox not only invites us to consider the depths of motion, but also how we understand progression and achievement in life. How we measure our own journeys may reflect a similar complexity, where the path is not always linear and the destinations can sometimes seem infinitely elusive. The non-identity problem is a fascinating philosophical dilemma that explores the moral implications of our actions, particularly how they affect future generations. This problem raises important questions about our responsibilities and the principles guiding our decisions. It invites us to delve into scenarios where the choices we make today could significantly alter the lives of individuals who will exist in the future. To understand the non-identity problem, consider a simple scenario. Imagine a couple who are contemplating whether to have a child. They face a decision concerning their lifestyle, one that involves pursuing various activities and choices that might lead to health issues or environmental effects that could influence the future of their offspring. The couple ultimately decides to make changes that will provide a healthier environment, but they do so knowing that these changes will defer their decision to have children. If they had instead chosen to prioritize their current desires, they might conceive a child who could face negative circumstances or health concerns as a result. The crux of the non-identity problem is this. If the couple's choices lead to a scenario where a child is born into a significantly different situation than what would have been created by alternative choices, can they truly be said to have harmed that future child? This question prompts us to consider the identity of that child. If the child exists as a result of the couple's choices, does their well-being in that unique scenario not justify the decisions that led to their existence? Philosophers weigh in on this issue by analyzing various aspects of moral responsibility. On one hand, some argue that our obligations are based on welfare and well-being, meaning we must consider the outcomes for potential individuals born as a result of our actions. In this light, it seems reasonable to argue that actions causing harm to future individuals are morally wrong, regardless of their existence being contingent on those very actions. On the other hand, critics of this viewpoint present the idea that the couple, or society at large, cannot be held accountable for decisions resulting in the existence of individuals who may have different lives based on those choices. This leads to a counterintuitive outcome where, despite the potential harmful consequences, the individuals who do exist cannot be considered harmed because their identity is tied to the decisions made. This brings an interesting twist to our ethical reasoning. Can we indeed harm a person whose existence is entirely a result of our decisions? The implications extend beyond personal decisions about family planning. Consider policies regarding climate change or technological advancements. Future generations will undoubtedly be influenced by our actions today, such as carbon emissions, resource depletion, or innovations in artificial intelligence. If the choices we make lead to a situation where future individuals thrive or suffer, what are our ethical responsibilities to those yet unborn? How do we weigh the potential benefits of our actions against the ethical considerations of their long-term effects? Suppose a country decides to advance its economy by exploiting natural resources that may lead to environmental degradation. Future generations may find themselves within a world struggling with climate issues, inadequately balanced ecosystems, rare resources, and societal unrest. Yet, if those future generations arise as a consequence of the current population's decisions, can they indeed claim to be harmed or wronged? This perplexing paradox complicates our moral landscape significantly. The non-identity problem also engages with issues of fairness and justice. If we act purely in self-interest, often favoring decisions that serve our immediate needs or desires, we risk sidelining the welfare of future individuals. Yet, if we were to prioritize the long-term consequences of our actions, we would be engaging in a difficult exercise of forecasting outcomes centered on individuals not yet in existence. Underlying this philosophical inquiry are questions about how we define personhood and moral consideration. At what point do we extend our moral obligations to beings who do not yet exist? Is it enough to consider the consequences of our actions, or do we possess an intrinsic duty to ensure a decent world for those who follow? In exploring the non-identity problem, philosophers invite us to not merely ponder our individual actions, but to assess societal norms and the collective choices that shape the future. It encourages a deeper examination of our values and ethics regarding responsibility, legacy, and the reality that our decisions resonate far beyond our lifetimes. This examination leads us to confront a vital conundrum. How should we balance the immediate needs of our present world against the potential needs of future individuals? We might envision scenarios where the cooperation among different generations is paramount, where shared wisdom and foresight become essential to nurturing an environment conducive to flourishing lives for those who come after us. Ultimately, the non-identity problem illuminates the intricate web of relationships and obligations that connect us to both past and future generations. It reminds us that every choice, no matter how small, has the potential to shape the lives of those who follow. Our moral landscape is richer and more complex than it appears at first glance, and grappling with these questions allows us to reflect on what kind of world we wish to create for those who will inherit it. Once upon a time, in the hustle and bustle of city life, we often encounter a rather intriguing phenomenon known as the absent-minded driver. This figure represents more than just someone who forgets where they are going. They embody a complex interplay of strategic decision-making under uncertainty. Imagine yourself in a vehicle, surrounded by an array of sounds, sights, and the constant buzz of life around you. Despite the goal of reaching a destination, distractions abound, and decisions must be made with limited information. Consider the scenario of a driver navigating through a busy intersection. The traffic light changes, and, in a split second, they must decide whether to speed through or come to a stop. This decision encapsulates the essence of strategic decision-making. The driver weighs the risks, the uncertainty of what could lie ahead, versus the strict adherence to traffic rules. It's a delicate balance, akin to a game of chess where each move has far-reaching consequences. In this context, we can explore the concepts of heuristics and biases. The absent-minded driver might rely on quick mental shortcuts rather than exhaustive analyses. For instance, if they see other cars moving, they might instinctively follow suit, assuming it is safe to do so. This mental shortcut can lead to both successful navigation and potential mishaps. Here, we see how cognitive biases influence decision-making, particularly in ambiguous situations. But let's not overlook the environmental factors at play. Imagine driving through a familiar neighborhood that has recently undergone construction. The usual routes are blocked, and new ones have appeared. An absent-minded driver, deeply engaged in their thoughts, might mistakenly reroute, leading to a longer journey or even a wrong turn. This situation illustrates how external uncertainties can challenge one's strategic decision-making processes. The familiar becomes unfamiliar, and choices must adapt swiftly. A significant aspect of the absent-minded driver is the impact of stress and multitasking. Picture a parent trying to navigate while managing a lively conversation with a child in the back seat. The driver's attention is divided, increasing the chance of overlooking critical indicators, like pedestrians or changing traffic signals. Here we uncover how cognitive load influences the capacity to make sound decisions, particularly amid uncertainty. Now think about a scenario involving weather changes. A clear day can transform into a downpour seemingly out of nowhere. An absent-minded driver might push on, underestimating the new conditions. They appeared prepared, but the lack of awareness about environmental changes can lead to reactive decision-making. This dynamic showcases that even the simplest decisions, like whether to speed up or slow down, become compounded with unpredictability. As we delve deeper into the nature of strategic decision-making, let's consider the role of experience and intuition. An experienced driver might navigate through uncertainties with more confidence than a novice. Their past experiences shape their intuition, allowing them to gauge risks more effectively. This reflects a broader principle. As we engage with a variety of situations, we develop a nuanced understanding that aids future decision-making. Yet, even the most seasoned drivers can find themselves lost in thought, demonstrating that absent-mindedness can affect anyone. What about the technological advancements in our vehicles? Today's cars are equipped with an array of features, from lane assist to navigation systems, that aim to minimize uncertainty. An absent-minded driver may lean heavily on these tools, perhaps to the extent that they become overly reliant. The paradox here is that while technology can offer support and increase safety, it may also lead to complacency. This reflection carries a message. Relying solely on external aids can obscure our judgment and awareness. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the social aspect of driving. The interactions with other road users, cyclists, pedestrians, and fellow motorists create a social map of sorts. An absent-minded driver may misinterpret social signals, like eye contact or body language, which are essential for harmonious navigation. This complexity adds layers to decision-making under uncertainty, as it relies not only on individual judgment, but also on collective behaviors. Lastly, let's contemplate the notion of mindfulness in driving. Unlike the absent-minded driver, a mindful one approaches the journey with a full awareness of the present moment. This perspective shifts the decision-making process from one driven by distractions to one informed by clarity. By consciously engaging in their environment, this driver can recognize subtle cues that indicate potential risks or opportunities, leading to enhanced strategic thinking. In essence, the absent-minded driver serves as a metaphor for the challenges we all face in decision-making under uncertainty. Whether it's navigating through city streets, making choices in our daily lives, or dealing with unexpected distractions, we are constantly weighing risks and benefits, conscious or not. As we reflect on these themes, we uncover valuable insights into our behaviors, decision-making processes, and the importance of maintaining focus amidst the chaos of modern living. So as you venture through your paths, consider how the concepts explored here might resonate within your own experiences. Navigating through uncertainty is a shared human experience, and like the absent-minded driver, we all possess the ability to make thoughtful decisions, balancing intuition with awareness, and learning from the journey itself. Imagine a scenario where a person, let's call them Alice, is faced with a seemingly life-or-death situation. Alice decides to explore a thought experiment that dives deep into the fascinating world of quantum mechanics. This is known as quantum suicide, a concept that challenges our understanding of reality, existence, and the nature of consciousness itself. At the heart of this thought experiment lies the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, first proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III in the 1950s. This interpretation suggests that every time a quantum event occurs, such as the flipping of a coin or the decay of a radioactive particle, the universe splits into multiple branching realities. Each possible outcome happens in its own separate universe. For example, if you flip a coin, one universe will contain a version of you who sees heads, while another universe holds a version who sees tails. This means that there are infinitely many versions of you, all experiencing different outcomes simultaneously. Now let's return to Alice and her thought experiment. Imagine she is about to engage in a dangerous game where the risk involves a gun that is rigged to either fire a bullet or click without harm, based on a random quantum event. The idea is that when Alice pulls the trigger, quantum mechanics dictates a 50% chance of the gun firing and a 50% chance of it not firing. According to the many-worlds interpretation, when this event occurs, the universe splits into two paths, one where Alice lives and another where she does not. Here's where it gets truly fascinating. If Alice survives the game, she continues her existence in one universe, while the other universe branches into a reality where she has met her end. This introduces the concept of immortality within the framework of quantum suicide. In a way, Alice is immortal because her consciousness continues in the universe where she survives every time the trigger is pulled. So each time she risks her life, she is splitting the universe and perpetuating her existence in one branch, while another version of her ceases to exist. This thought experiment raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and existence. What does it mean to be alive? Is it merely a matter of being aware in one universe while countless other versions of ourselves are experiencing different realities? If Alice's consciousness can persist through infinite branches of existence, what does that mean for our understanding of life, death, and what it means to truly exist? Moreover, quantum suicide touches on the ethical implications of such thought experiments. If a person were to consciously engage in this kind of game, they would have to grapple with the morality of their choices. Would risking their life in this manner be considered a form of bravery or an act of recklessness? It prompts us to ponder the value of life. Is it the quality of our experiences that matters, or simply the fact that we exist in multiple forms across different realities? The overwhelming complexity of this idea presents a paradox that continues to intrigue philosophers and physicists alike. Image this scenario. As we navigate our daily lives, we make countless decisions, each with a different outcome. In a quantum sense, every choice creates new paths. If we were to apply the principles of quantum suicide to mundane decisions, such as what to eat for breakfast, we might realize that each choice influences different versions of ourselves. One version enjoys pancakes, while another finds joy in a healthy smoothie bowl. This ever-branching reality illustrates that even the smallest decision reverberates throughout the multiverse. As this thought experiment unfolds in the mind, one cannot help but be fascinated by the implications of such a reality. What if instead of seeing the universe as a single thread, we considered it a vast tapestry, woven from millions of threads, each representing different choices, actions, and outcomes? It draws attention to the interconnectedness of existence, forcing us to reevaluate how we view our lives and the importance of our decisions. In conclusion, Quantum Suicide offers an intriguing lens through which to explore the mysteries of quantum mechanics, existence, and the nature of consciousness. It invites us to reflect on our journey through life, recognizing that every moment can lead to new beginnings and alternative realities, while also confronting the ethical considerations of our choices. The thought experiment weaves complex philosophical threads into the fabric of our understanding, crafting an imaginative narrative that encourages curiosity about the universe and our place within it. Whether contemplating the choices we make or the diverse realities that branch from those decisions, we find ourselves on a journey through the wonders of existence, one quantum leap at a time. The paradox of value is a fascinating topic that invites us to explore the complexities of economics and human perception. At first glance, it seems counterintuitive that some essential goods, such as water or bread, can be much cheaper than luxury items like diamonds or designer handbags. This economic puzzle has intrigued thinkers for centuries, and understanding it can provide insight into how we value different goods in our lives. To begin unraveling this paradox, let us consider the concept of utility. Utility refers to the satisfaction or benefit that a consumer derives from a good or service. Essential goods like food and water are vital for survival, yet they often carry a lower price tag. This leads us to the idea of abundance. Water, for instance, is incredibly abundant in many places, making it relatively inexpensive. When a good is plentiful, its price tends to decrease, as more of it is available to satisfy demand. In contrast, luxury items are often scarce or exclusive, and this limited availability drives their prices higher. Let's look at an everyday example to illustrate this point further. Imagine a small village where there is an endless supply of fresh water from a nearby river. The villagers have all the water they need, and the market price for water reflects this abundance. Now consider a rare gemstone found in just one specific location in the world. The gemstone is difficult to obtain, and only a few pieces are available for sale. Because of its scarcity and the desire for uniqueness, the gemstone commands a high price, despite providing no essential benefit to survival. Another important aspect to consider is the concept of marginal utility. Marginal utility refers to the added satisfaction a person gains from consuming one more unit of a good. When we think of water, the first few glasses we drink provide significant benefit, quenching our thirst and keeping us hydrated. However, as we continue to drink more, the additional pleasure diminishes. After a certain point, the next glass of water offers little additional satisfaction. On the other hand, when it comes to luxury items, the desire often increases as more people crave that one-of-a-kind piece, leading people to value it more than what is essential for their day-to-day lives. Cultural influences also play a key role in shaping our perceptions of value. Throughout history, certain items have been deemed symbols of status and success. Think of a luxurious car, for example. While a basic, reliable vehicle serves a practical purpose of transportation, a luxury car is often seen as a status symbol that reflects wealth and prestige. Society shapes the perception of these items, making them desirable and worth a higher price, even if they do not serve a practical need in the same way a basic car would. Marketing and branding further complicate the idea of value. Companies invest heavily in creating an image around luxury goods, often associating them with quality, exclusivity, and lifestyle aspirations. When consumers purchase these items, they are not simply buying a product. They are buying into a particular image or identity. This manipulation of perception leads people to perceive luxury items as more valuable than they may objectively be, contributing to their inflated prices. Furthermore, the psychological factors at play cannot be overlooked. People often derive enjoyment and satisfaction from owning luxury items that can elevate their status among peers or fulfill a desire for prestige. This emotional connection can overshadow the practical need for more affordable essentials. It brings us to the idea that value is not solely determined by utility or necessity, but is also influenced by human emotions, social contexts, and personal aspirations. Finally, supply and demand dynamics illustrate why some essential goods remain inexpensive. In many regions, consumer demand plays a crucial role in determining price. If an item is perceived as essential and widely needed, prices might remain relatively low to ensure accessibility for the population. On the other hand, luxury items embody a different market dynamic. When a product is desirable, the demand may far outstrip supply, allowing prices to skyrocket. In conclusion, the paradox of value presents a thought-provoking look into how we perceive worth in our economy. While essential goods cater to our basic needs and are often abundant, luxury items thrive on scarcity, perception, and status. The value we assign to items is shaped by many factors, including utility, cultural influences, marketing, and the emotions they evoke. Ultimately, this paradox highlights the complexity of human desire and the intricate web that defines what we consider valuable in our lives, leading us to question the true nature of worth in the world we inhabit. The hedonistic paradox is an intriguing concept that touches on the relationship between pleasure and happiness. To understand this paradox, we must first define what hedonism is. Hedonism is the philosophical idea that pleasure or happiness is the highest good, and that the pursuit of pleasure is the most important goal of life. At first glance, it seems reasonable to think that if we pursue pleasure, we will be happy. However, the hedonistic paradox reveals that the pursuit of pleasure alone does not always lead to lasting happiness. Consider the classic example of someone who seeks pleasure through indulgence in food. When a person eats their favorite dessert, they may experience immediate joy and satisfaction. The taste, texture, and aroma create a delightful experience, stimulating the senses. However, if this indulgence becomes excessive, it could lead to negative consequences, such as feelings of guilt, health issues, or even weight gain. In this case, the pursuit of pleasure in food results in a paradox where the initial experience of joy is overshadowed by later discomfort, both physically and emotionally. Similarly, imagine someone who seeks pleasure through excitement and thrill-seeking activities, such as extreme sports or reckless behavior. The adrenaline rush provides an exhilarating experience, contributing to a sense of joy and adventure at the moment. However, constantly seeking out the next thrilling experience may ultimately lead to burnout, anxiety, or a sense of emptiness once the thrill fades. While the pursuit of these pleasurable activities seems satisfying in the short term, they may fail to provide lasting happiness. In contrast, consider a different approach where someone engages in actions that may not produce immediate pleasure but contribute to deeper, more lasting happiness. For example, volunteering for a charitable organization can initially feel challenging or even inconvenient. However, the joy derived from helping others and making a positive impact can lead to a profound sense of fulfillment and purpose. This type of happiness does not stem from the pursuit of pleasure alone, but from meaningful experiences and connections with others. The hedonistic paradox also highlights the role of adaptation in our experience of pleasure. Humans have a remarkable tendency to adapt to changes in their circumstances. This phenomenon is often referred to as the hedonic treadmill. When we achieve a desired level of pleasure or happiness, we quickly adapt to it, and our baseline for what constitutes pleasure raises. As a result, we find ourselves constantly seeking new sources of pleasure to maintain that level of happiness, leading to a never-ending cycle of pursuit without satisfaction. This understanding suggests that a more balanced approach may be necessary for lasting happiness. Instead of fixating solely on the pursuit of pleasure, individuals could benefit from exploring other aspects of life that contribute to overall well-being. Engaging in meaningful relationships, pursuing personal growth, and contributing to something greater than oneself are all avenues that can lead to a fulfilling life. For instance, cultivating relationships with friends and family often provides a sense of belonging and emotional support. These connections can offer joy and fulfillment that far exceeds the transient pleasure derived from material possessions or fleeting experiences. Nurturing these relationships may require effort and sometimes sacrifice, but the rewards in terms of emotional satisfaction can be profound. Additionally, diving into personal passions, whether through art, music, sports, or any other hobby, can also evoke a sense of joy that transcends mere pleasure. The process of creating, learning, or becoming skilled in an activity builds a sense of achievement and purpose. This intrinsic motivation can foster deeper levels of satisfaction that a simple pursuit of pleasure may not provide. Moreover, aligning one's actions with personal values can lead to a more authentic and satisfying life. When individuals focus on what truly matters to them, be it family, integrity, creativity, or service, prioritizing these values often leads to actions that enhance their sense of well-being. This alignment creates a sense of coherence in life that contributes to happiness. In summary, the hedonistic paradox serves as a reminder that the pursuit of pleasure in isolation often leads to ephemeral joy that does not guarantee a deeper sense of happiness. While seeking pleasure is a natural human inclination, balancing that pursuit with meaningful experiences, relationships, personal growth, and aligning actions with values may lead to a more fulfilling and lasting sense of joy. By recognizing this paradox, individuals can navigate the complexities of happiness, moving beyond the superficial chase for pleasure and embracing a richer, more satisfying journey through life. Ultimately, understanding the nuances of pleasure and happiness allows us to cultivate a more profound appreciation for the experiences that truly enrich our lives. Imagine a world where time travel is not just a concept found in books and movies, but a realm of theoretical possibilities that stretches our understanding of reality. At the heart of this exploration lies a fascinating element known as counterfactuals. Counterfactuals are the what-if scenarios that allow us to envision different outcomes based on alternative paths. By considering these hypothetical alternatives, we can start to appreciate the impact they might have on our understanding of time travel. Let's begin by picturing a simple counterfactual scenario. Suppose a person named Alex decides to take a different route to work one day. This seemingly minor decision could set off a chain of events, leading to a completely different daily experience. What if Alex encounters a long-lost friend during this detour? This chance meeting could spark a renewed friendship, alter career paths, or influence future relationships. With each choice and each moment, we enter a web of possibilities that can branch off into countless directions. Now, apply this idea to time travel. If we could leap backward in time, witnessing, or perhaps even influencing events, we would create counterfactuals that challenge our understanding of causality. Imagine traveling back to witness a significant historical event, like the signing of a peace treaty. What if, instead of merely observing, you inadvertently changed something? Maybe you offered a piece of crucial information to a key figure. Such an action could ripple through time, creating an entirely different outcome from the one we know today. The famous grandfather paradox eloquently illustrates these counterfactual ideas. Imagine you travel back in time and accidentally prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother. In this case, if your grandparents never meet, you might never be born. This creates a tricky loop. If you were never born, how could you have traveled back to cause the situation in the first place? This paradox dives deep into the philosophical implications of counterfactuals, raising questions about identity, existence, and the nature of reality. The concept of branching timelines offers a possible solution to these paradoxes. If you could travel to an alternate timeline and make changes, the original timeline would remain intact, creating a parallel universe where your actions did not affect your existence. This perspective allows for a multitude of outcomes based on choices made at various points in history. In this model, every significant event could spawn an alternate reality, where scenarios unfold in unique ways, each dependent on the decisions made at various junctures. Consider the historical figure of Joan of Arc. What if, instead of leading troops, she had chosen to live a quiet life as a farmer? The implications for French history would be immense, and by exploring this counterfactual, we can see how intertwined history and individual choices are. Each decision can reshape the course of history, and theorizing about such moments opens the floodgates to numerous alternate histories. By delving deeper into this concept, we discover the rich tapestry of human experience defined by choices and alternative paths. Think of a scientific breakthrough, like the invention of the telephone. If Alexander Graham Bell had focused solely on his music career and never invented the device that transformed communication, how would society look today? Would we still carry mobile phones or have different scenarios unfolded? Each thread of reasoning creates a realm of counterfactuals, reflecting how pivotal moments can diverge and lead to new realities. As we investigate these counterfactuals, we discover new dimensions of human experience and possibility. They challenge us to think beyond our current understanding of the world. The contemplation of time travel and counterfactuals encourages us to reflect on our choices, recognizing our agency in shaping the future. Additionally, popular culture offers myriad interpretations of time travel and counterfactuals. Movies like Back to the Future illustrate the exciting possibilities of altered timelines, while stories such as The Butterfly Effect remind us of the profound consequences that can arise from seemingly small actions. These narratives reinforce our innate curiosity about how choices resonate through time. In the realm of theoretical physics, researchers are exploring concepts such as closed, time-like curves and the nature of space-time itself, proposing that time travel may indeed operate within the bounds of complex physics. While these theories are steeped in mathematics and may seem abstract, they resonate with the core idea of counterfactuals, events that, if altered, could reshape our understanding of the universe. As we weave together the threads of counterfactuals and time travel, we embark on a journey through a landscape rich with potential. By envisioning different outcomes and appreciating how choices can dramatically alter the path of existence, we create a framework for understanding not just time, but also our experiences within it. The interplay of decision-making, historical events, and alternate realities allows us to engage with our world in a more profound way, igniting our imagination while prompting us to contemplate the impact of our actions today. In this infinite sea of possibilities, we stand at the crossroads of imagination and reality. Every choice we make not only shapes our own lives, but influences the vast web of experiences that make up human history. Counterfactuals, together with the theoretical promise of time travel, invite us to dive deeper into the mysteries of existence, challenging us to consider the paths we take and the alternate realities that various choices could open. As we ponder the unexplored avenues of possibility, we become aware of the interconnectedness of time, choices, and the lives we lead, eternally bound by the threads of causality and chance. The paradox of fiction is a fascinating concept that dives deep into the relationship between our emotions and the stories we encounter in books, films, or any form of art. On the surface, it seems straightforward. How can we feel genuine sadness, joy, or fear for characters who do not exist in reality? These characters are figments of someone's imagination, yet they often evoke feelings that are palpably real. Let's consider a common experience. Watching a movie where the lead character faces a great tragedy. You may find yourself tearing up during that heartbreaking scene, even though you know that what you're witnessing is merely an enactment by actors. So why do we connect so strongly to these narratives? The paradox of fiction seeks to explore this intriguing emotional connection. One explanation revolves around our innate ability to empathize. Humans are social creatures, wired to identify with and understand the emotions of others. When a story unfolds, our brains activate mirror neurons, leading us to experience emotions that the characters portray. For instance, if you see a character exploring their dreams and ultimately achieving success, you might feel a rush of happiness, motivated by your own aspirations. This capacity to empathize allows us to connect with fictional experiences as if they were our own. Another aspect of our emotional response to fiction is rooted in the suspension of disbelief. When engaging with a narrative, we willingly set aside skepticism and embrace the world created by the author or filmmaker. This permeates the experience, allowing us to dive into the emotions without constantly reminding ourselves that what we are seeing or reading is not real. This temporary leap into another realm makes it easier for us to connect on an emotional level, similar to how children become engrossed in their imaginative play. Moreover, fictional events can reflect real-life situations, striking chords of familiarity. Many stories, even those set in fantastical or alien landscapes, often grapple with universal themes such as love, loss, jealousy, and redemption. These themes resonate deeply with our own lives and experiences. By seeing a character face challenges that we too have encountered, we might feel a profound sense of connection. This is especially true in narratives that involve character growth, moral dilemmas, or the exploration of identity. Consider the classic story of a hero's journey. The hero sets out on an adventure, faces trials, encounters adversaries, and ultimately finds a way to triumph. This narrative structure mirrors our own journeys in life. When we witness the hero struggle and overcome obstacles, it evokes feelings of hope and resilience within us. We vicariously experience their challenges and, in turn, reflect on our capacity to face difficulties. Additionally, the emotions stirred by fiction can facilitate a deeper understanding of ourselves and our feelings. Engaging with complex characters and plots provides a safe space to explore our vulnerabilities and fears. For example, witnessing a character deal with grief might allow us to process our own experiences with loss. Fiction can serve as a mirror, reflecting back parts of ourselves that we may not fully understand or acknowledge in real life. Interestingly, this emotional engagement does not always result in positive feelings. A story can elicit fear or sadness, and yet we still find ourselves drawn into it. This is perhaps where the paradox intensifies. How can we, at once, seek entertainment and enjoy the emotional roller coaster of a tragic narrative? It can be exhilarating to experience an emotional upheaval in a controlled environment, knowing that we ultimately retain control and can step away at any moment. This is akin to enjoying a thrilling ride at an amusement park. Though the ride may induce fear, it ultimately offers a rush of adrenaline and excitement. Fiction also enables us to explore situations beyond our life experiences. It opens doors to understand cultures, time periods, or lifestyles that we might never encounter firsthand. By stepping into someone else's shoes, even if just for a moment, we expand our understanding of the human experience. This exposure fosters empathy and compassion, enriching our emotional landscape. Lastly, the creation of emotional bonds with fictional characters often leads to a sense of belonging and community among fans. Sharing emotions over a character's journey can spark discussions, debates, and connections with others who feel similarly invested. This shared engagement enhances the emotional intensity of the story. In conclusion, the emotional responses we have to fictional events are complex and multifaceted. Through empathy, suspension of disbelief, shared themes, and the safe exploration of our feelings, we connect with narratives that resonate deeply within us. The paradox of fiction reminds us that even in our imaginary explorations, we find reflections of our reality, offering insights into our hopes, fears, and ultimately our humanity. Engaging with fiction not only provides solace and understanding, but also allows us to journey through the vast terrain of emotions that define our existence. As we immerse ourselves in these stories, we are reminded of the power of narrative to shape our feelings and perspectives in profound ways. The Barber Paradox is a captivating thought experiment in the realm of set theory, designed to illustrate some rather perplexing ideas concerning self-reference and definition. Imagine a town with a barber who has a rather unique role. He shaves all those who do not shave themselves. At first glance, this simply might seem like a quirky premise, but it quickly spirals into a mind-bending contradiction. To unravel this paradox, let's think about the barber's function. If the barber does indeed shave himself, he must be a part of the group of men who shave themselves. However, this would contradict his responsibility, since he only shaves those who do not shave themselves. Conversely, if he does not shave himself, he would belong to the category of men who must rely on him for a shave, because he only shaves those who do not shave themselves. Thus, irrespective of whether he shaves himself or not, a contradiction arises, leading us to a logical impasse. This paradox serves as an intriguing illustration of how certain statements can create unexpected contradictions when self-reference is involved. The barber represents a particular set, specifically the set of all people who do not shave themselves. The paradox occurs because of the ambiguity inherent in including the barber within that same set. It's a classic example of how our intuitive understanding of categories and classification can sometimes lead to conclusions that defy logic. But why is this paradox significant beyond mere logical curiosity? It highlights the complexities and occasionally problematic nature of set theory, a foundational component of modern mathematics. Set theory allows us to define collections of objects wherein each object holds a common property. Still, the Barber paradox shows that defining a set without clear boundaries can lead to vexing situations. It encourages mathematicians, philosophers, and anyone who enjoys contemplating puzzles to consider the importance of precise definitions. The Barber paradox isn't just an isolated curiosity, it connects with other famous conundrums in logic. One well-known example is Russell's paradox, which also emerges from set theory. Bertrand Russell discovered this issue while pondering whether the collection of all sets that do not contain themselves is itself a set. If such a set exists, it leads to the same kind of paradox we see with the barber. This reflects a critical insight into how certain logical systems can break down when they encounter self-reference. Additionally, the implications of these paradoxes extend beyond abstract mathematics. They affect theories and discussions in computer science, linguistics, and philosophy. Whenever we try to classify objects or define categories, we must be mindful of the potential for contradictions and paradoxes, shaping the way we understand logic and reason. Imagine that the barber were to create a set of rules governing his town's grooming practices, stating that every citizen must either shave or be shaved by him. He would effectively redefine the entire social structure based on a simple act of grooming, forcing people into categories that could easily lead to the existence of paradoxical situations. This also serves as an analogy for how systems can be organized in ways that seem logical, yet contain hidden flaws. As we delve deeper into this thought experiment, we can see applications of this paradox in everyday situations. Consider social networks where people categorize their relationships. If someone tries to define their friends as those who do not consider them friends, they might just find themselves in a web of contradictions that complicates the social dynamic. The barber paradox is more than just a puzzle of logic. It invites us to reflect on how we think about categories, self-reference, and the nature of definitions. It illustrates the delicate balance we must strike to maintain consistency and logic. In a broader sense, it encourages curiosity and exploration of ideas that may seem straightforward but can lead to profound insights once examined more closely. When we encounter contradictions in our thinking, it helps to step back and reassess our definitions and assumptions. The barber paradox shows us that what might seem like a simple question can uncover layers of complexity that demand a thoughtful exploration of the concepts involved. This is a reminder of how important clarity is in communication, reasoning, and understanding. In conclusion, the barber paradox operates as an engaging representation of the intricate world of logic and set theory. It serves as a lens through which we can explore the limitations of our definitions and categories, provoking thought about the nature of classification itself. As we reflect on such paradoxes, we gain a clearer understanding of the boundaries of thinking and logic, while being reminded of the beauty inherent in intellectual exploration.